Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Shortbox, Season 6, yeah.
A part of me wanted to scrap this whole episode and just talk about how excited I am for this Miles Morales.
Oh, you beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Straight up. When that trailer dropped, I was like, I wonder if I can convince Brian not to talk about himself and to talk about Miles Morales.
Just like the glass is shattering. You see electricity and his freaking costume flails off.
It's like I have all my notes written. I just like toss my iPhone.
Welcome to the PS5 podcast.
Yo, someone had commented on Ed's recent post this morning saying he posted how the Miles Morales game is going to be a standalone game. And someone, I think it was Flacco Rican, had commented that
of course.
The PS5 is $700.
Wait, what?
Yo, what? Baby, we ain't making. I'm not making my half of rent.
I'm going to have to pay $700 to support my Boricua brother, Miles Morales.
I mean, you got to, right?
It's a $700 Miles Morales game.
It is a Puerto Rican necessity.
It's not that I want to. I mean, I have to. It's an obligation.
It's in the rules. It's in the rules.
It'd be easier if there was a God of War coming out.
What?
It'd be immediate if there was a God of War coming out. I might wait for the Slim.
Dude, hashtag white privilege. Like, yo, seriously, like,
take advantage of that white privilege.
Brian's like, actually, I'm Greek, so I'm very much a part of Kratos' life.
I'm just wait. So wait, have you played the Spider-Man game that came out?
It's okay.
You're right. What was I doing? Like,
you were like, hold on. Are we gonna have to do like an intervention, Spider? You know what show you're on, right? You're talking shit about Spider-Man. Like, you took it so personally that he was like, I might like God of War more than the Spider-Man game that came out.
Charlie Brady on the slide.
You know, that actually wasn't the point. That actually what I wasn't meaning that.
See what happens, Botter? See what happens? We're all learning today.
You're right.
You know, when a new Nintendo comes out, it comes out with a new Zelda, or it doesn't come out to me.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So I buy it's a $300 Zelda game every time it comes out.
That's true.
You know. So when PlayStation comes out with a new something, for me now it's God of War. But I will say, God of War and Spider-Man are probably the top 2 games that I've played in the last decade.
Easily. See, top 2.
Yeah.
See?
All right, you're right. I'm sorry.
Top 2. Those are your top 2, right?
This is why I invited C, because he's more of the level-headed, like, elder statesman.
Oh.
If Drew was here, we both would have been like, oh, man, what the?
Don't get me wrong.
Ebonics flying everywhere.
There's a part of me.
In onomatopoeia
No,
form.
there's a part of me that wants to web sling over there and jack slap Brian real quick, but I held it. I held it in to hear what he had to say, and he was trying to say something else.
And Brian, I guess let me ask you this: has your recent did your Shortbox debut warrant and give you the fame and accolades I thought it would? Did it raise like your cool points at the shop? I'm like, yeah, I've been on the show. You always got to see the spit out some water. I don't think I've done
You
that.
are the fucking smarmiest stuck on yourself ass. This dude's like, so basically I'm asking you, did you get some pussy from being on the short box?
Hey, real quick, we had Malcolm on the show earlier in the week, and we were talking about those omnibuses. He was like, "Yo, I pulled out like my omnibuses plenty of time and gotten plenty of action." I said, "Stop lying."
No one. No, it's the opposite has happened.
Not at all.
I stood on them to get better leverage.
I was about to say that. Those omnibuses do two things. Look good on your shelf and dry up cooch faster than you could even you could imagine.
Damn. Woo. All right, that's a great way to start a family-friendly episode. Woo. No, I mean,
Wait, is this one? Shit.
Are they ever family-friendly?
I don't know. Sometimes. Once.
The Jumbo Shrimp one's the only one that comes to mind where we were like, "You're family-friendly." Like fighting back. The
Family entertainment at the short box. The Manson family.
But I guess, you being on that episode, did anything change for you?
I did have a conversation with Ben about it, and then I did have somebody stop me in the street and was like, "I recognize you." That didn't actually happen.
Damn, I was like, damn, shit. From your voice alone?
Yeah, it was funny. It was like
same shirt.
It never happens to us. Like we low key started hating on him. Like low key, just like that's cool, Brian. And we all just look at each other like,
It was family members.
No, everybody who said something was somebody who I sent it to. Like, oh, great job, man! It's great. Great
Thanks,
that you're
Mom.
doing that.
Yes, like,
okay,
good job, loser.
I need
nerd.
you to like it and smash that subscribe button.
Well, you know what? We'll get into more detail on how things have changed since you've been last on.
So, what episode was that, Potter? Do you
that was
remember?
episode 277. That was Die a Fan, and originally it was a bonus episode, but it was such a good conversation. And I mean, even like our patrons had hit me up because I had made a joke on the episode, like, yeah, we might release it, to general public. And someone hit me up, I was like, yo, if you guys are to release any bonus episodes to the general public, this is the one. Like, this episode is about a new comic book collector coming into the hobby and like expressing his opinions on things. Like, this is the one to put out to the rest of the Shortbox Nation. So I was really happy with the reception that we got for that episode, and I recommend anyone tuning in right now to give that episode a listen if you aren't familiar. That was Brian's first Shortbox appearance, episode 277, Die a Fan. I do want to go ahead and welcome everyone to the Shortbox Podcast. This is episode 290. I'm your host, Botter Milligan. I got my right-hand man, Cesar Cordero, here with me.
Excelsior.
And we've got a special guest, Brian Brumleve, back for his second Shortbox appearance.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
I want to go ahead and proudly say that this episode is sponsored by Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville's premier location for comic books, collectibles, toys, and more, located on Southside Boulevard here in Jacksonville, Florida. You'll hear more about them later on in this episode, but tell them the Shortbox sent you when you go. And yeah, if this is your first time tuning in, might I recommend giving our previous episode a listen. That was episode 289, released the Shaggy Cut. Myself, Ashley, and Ed said our farewells to our good friend and frequent guest co-host Shaggy Black. The send-off was in true Shortbox fashion. We talked about the Justice League Snyder Cut and Shaggy's favorite subject, HBO Max. That episode is available on your favorite podcast app now. And I wanted to say before we get on with today's discussion, I want to give a shout-out to some Shortbox family. Speaking about Malcolm, I want to give a shout out to Malcolm Jackson, a great friend of the show and just an overall good dude who represents for this city hard. Malcolm was our guest last week for our 32nd bonus episode. That one was titled Gas Me Up. We had a wonderful talk about a plethora of topics. That episode is only available on patreon.com/theshortbox for now, but who knows? It might make its way to the rest of the Shortbox Nation soon. And while I'm on the topic of Patreon, I want to give all of our True Believer tier patrons a shout-out. We're gearing up for another Artist Spotlight episode, and per the usual, who we cover is in their hands. Now, this go-around, we're switching it up because we're letting our Shortbox True Believer tier patrons nominate the artist, and then we'll decide who we pick as a team.
That's right. That's absolutely correct, Butter. Now, we're letting our patrons, Junji Ito, choose exactly who the artist spotlight is going to be, Junji Ito. Just lead with your heart.
Yeah.
You don't. This isn't something that we're trying to guide or navigate in any sort of way, Junji Ito. And if you decide that, there's an artist that you know no one really knows anything about that you want to hear us talk about for like an hour and a half, Junji Ito, please make it known. You know how to get a hold of us.
Well, so far we've gotten some stellar nominations like John Byrne, David Mackey,
Who?
and Jim Lee. I thought the David Mackey one was a really good suggestion. Out of like not left field because I mean he deserves that praise, but
sure.
I know we haven't discussed David Mackey, so that was a good one. But yeah, we'll pick the winner when we record next Sunday, June 21st. So shout out to all of our existing patrons and future patrons, man. If you listen to this episode and you feel inclined to directly support the creation of more episodes and help us keep the lights on here at Shortbox Studios, consider becoming a Shortbox patron. We'll reward you with bonus episodes, commercial-free episodes, as well as exclusive merch and gifts in exchange for just a couple of dollars.
Just not that much.
Yeah, not at all.
Not
like a
that
cup
much.
of coffee.
Just give us your fucking money.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. Check out what we have to offer for your contributions on our membership site, patreon.com/theshortbox. And also, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It is a good time to become a patron, seeing as we have a secret live event planned for the end of the month.
Yeah.
That only patrons will be able to attend.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we'll have more information on that one. So it's a great time to become a Shortbox patron. Brian, we moving on to you, man. I got all that business stuff out the way. How have you been, dude? How have you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciate you guys having me back on. I've kind of tried to continue the hobby as much as I can after, everything kind of...
there was a plague, so, we're going to be easy on you.
Yeah, actually, Brian, you were on first week in February. It is now a post-COVID world in a way, and we're having you back on because I was interested in the, March, April, May, June, in the 4 months. How has the hobby been for you? How have things changed? Has your mindset
What's
changed?
it like in the comic wasteland? Surviving in the post-apocalyptic world like some sort of comic book Mad Max.
Yeah, and I think when we had you on, we were recording with Drew. I had made a comment like, "Yo, we got to get have you talk with C about comic books because
Yeah, why? I got to ask.
Because you've been real pivotal to me and Drew's. I think you've been an influence on me and Drew's collecting and just and the hobby for us. I mean, you've always kind of been our elder statesman. You've always kind of given us a different perspective on things. You're always kind of suggesting like kind of books or titles that I personally wouldn't probably have thought about. So I wanted to get that.
Well, anything other than Marvel is pretty easy to do. That's not that hard to say.
You're like Batman. I'm like, tell me
Who
more.
is this Batman?
Tell me more. So I wanted a different perspective because I know that episode it was definitely Marvel heavy because at the time that's all you were collecting. Mm-hmm. So I mean I guess that's my first question is how has your tastes or just your pull has changed in the last 4 months?
Well, it immediately changed because I told you I was so into all of the new stuff coming out. That's what I was hyped about. And once the new stuff stopped coming out, I was immediately forced to say, okay, how am I going to continue this hobby? Do I go into the DC world? And I didn't choose to go into the DC world. I chose to go into just kind of like, I don't want to say offshoots. I don't know a better word for it, but just not non-Marvel stories.
Sure.
So I found a lot of good stories that way, and reading a lot of trades that I was ordering off of Amazon.
Right.
And I think for the past 2 weeks, I've been able to go back to the comic book shop. I go to Gotham, and so I'm actually picking up comics again. So it's picking back up. But I actually have like a stack on my table too. I'm at that point where I'm like, oh my God, I got a stack.
So can I ask, what are your favorite titles that you like? Like, what do you like to read?
Right now, everything X-Men. Everything that came out of Dawn of X.
So you're horny.
What?
Okay. All right. There's a lot of sex in those books. Got it.
Big energy coming from those books.
Yeah.
So
Big X energy.
And I guess I'm trying to fall off some of the other little offshoots that I was collecting because I felt like I was collecting too much. Money-wise, I couldn't keep up with all of that.
Welcome to the struggle.
Well, hold up, real quick. Has your spending changed? Because I remember you meekly asking me and Drew, "Yo, is $50 a week too much?" And we kind of laughed at that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's changed.
God, I remember spending that much.
I remember spending double, triple that.
And I'm definitely not spending anywhere near that now. And I was spending that because, I'm going to pick up the couple titles that I want. Then I see like a new #1 out and I'm like, oh shit. And I see a title of a person who's always interested in me and I've never read more into that person. So I might just pick that up. I got into a lot of different ones when So, maybe there's only 1 or 2 X-Men titles coming out. So I wanted something else to read. So I looked for something else. And, that's how I kind of found some of these other things that I'm reading, like, some Greg Pak stuff or
Greg Pak.
Just some of the... That comes to mind.
Yeah, no, I know. It's like he's like dropping artist names and stuff. You're like, oh, wow, okay.
He brought up Greg Pak and fucking Agents of Atlantis, like as his like one of his first titles, and we were like, damn.
Agents of Atlas. Sorry.
What did I say?
Atlantis.
Yo, give me your
Wait, did I
Marvel
say
card.
that?
You said Agents of Atlantis.
Take it. AC.
But fair enough.
You got this episode? Thank you, bro.
To be fair,
My bad.
that all led into Atlantis Attacks with Namor, and that's like actually the first time I've ever read about Namor in a comic.
So you support terrorism? Let's explore that. Let's explore that. No, so okay, I'm trying to get a bead on like your taste and what it is that you're trying to, what you like, basically.
So right now, huge into everything Donny Cates. I found him as a writer, and I like everything he's doing with the whole cosmic Marvel thing going on. And then, so when I was finding non-Marvel titles to read, I found God Country by him, which I really loved. And then what was the other one? I can't think of another one. The other title that's coming to my mind actually wasn't by him. It's but Once and Future.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that is so good.
I think I picked that up off of something that you guys said on your show one time, and I was.
I mean, we saying some nice.
Well, y'all talk so highly
suggestions.
of it. I was like, okay,
it's
I'll
good.
order it.
I don't know if it's Donny Cates.
So this is
It's
interesting.
not. It's definitely not.
So when you first started collecting, did you just immediately latch on to characters? How long did it take? What I'm asking is basically, how long did it take from when you first started collecting to be like, oh, I like this character, to, wait a minute, this book is good not just because the character, the writers or the artists attached to this project are who I really need to be following?
That was a suggestion from
okay.
Drew and Botter and everybody that I talked to that was asking me about, the writers and the illustrators that I was following.
And if I may interject, that's something that like C had kind of ingrained in me. Like I remember like vivid conversations of you telling me like, yo, you're going about it all wrong. Yeah, Spider-Man sucks right now because it's not the same writer that you had fallen in love with like previously. Follow the writer. And yeah.
Yeah, and maybe it's a great way to think about it. I was actually I was having a conversation with Ben at Gotham City Limit the other day, and it's not even something that he necessarily does too much, follow the writers and the certain. He said he wants to do more of that. So we had a conversation about that as well. But I do think I was lucky, traveling this path of wanting to know more about the writers and following them. I was lucky because the first thing I got into was the Dawn of X coming out with House of X and Powers of 10.
Right.
So with that being a Hickman title, I looked into a couple other Hickman things, and apparently, I struck gold.
Jesus, did you get into East and West?
East of us.
No.
Okay.
No.
Not yet?
The Secret Wars Hickman.
Oh.
Yeah, dude.
Did you read it?
I read the culmination book of Secret Wars. I didn't read any.
I got to tell you right now, you're too young for that.
Dude, oh my God, yo.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now. That is, and I don't mean young as in age. I mean comic book reading age. You're too young for it.
Well, that's what I like.
Comic
that
years.
Stuff. I think I like that.
Well,
stuff.
good, even better.
I did go back and read Avengers and New Avengers.
Sure,
the lead up to it.
I'm going to tell you right now. I didn't read any of those books, but I read Secret Wars, and Botter and I probably, on a weekly basis, reference that book maybe 2 or 3 times a week. A week! 2 or 3 times a week referencing a single, story arc.
Well, the art was beautiful. The art was amazing.
I mean, he said Rivik. Yeah.
And I had never read anything about Doctor Doom. I'd never read anything about Fantastic Four.
Okay.
So this was the first time I ever gained respect for Reed Richards, because I was like, wow, he's a cool character. And I had always just thought he was kind of...
He's a nerd.
Lame,
yeah,
because of the movies.
Like two-dimensional nerd, not really someone that is human, right? They portray him as science guy,
and then stretchy guy. Yeah.
Right.
There are better superpowers than that.
Man, it's funny. You read that book, and then you read Stan and Jack's version of the Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. Those first 100 issues are amazing. Now, okay, so if you don't mind. Now I'm kind of getting a little feel about what you're interested in and basically what your habits are as a collector.
Hey, Shortbox Nation. Sorry for the interruption. Just a few quick words from our sponsor, and we'll get right back to the show. Yeah, so this is where I pick up my comics.
Excuse me, might I remind you the rules here at No Touch Collectibles? No loitering, no friendship, no touching the merchandise without gloves, and no free bags and boards.
Yeah, man, I know. This shop sucks. I don't even know why I shop here.
Well, we could go to Jacksonville's premier location for comic books, collectibles, toys, and more.
You okay?
At Gotham City Limits, you get 10% off comic books in your pull, 20% off trade paperbacks and hardcovers, 10% off high-end figures and statues, and free bags and boards. It's practically criminal.
And that's why Gotham City Limits is a place of the people.
How many times have you watched the Batman trilogy?
I'm ashamed to say.
Well, I mean, they're not bad.
One time for every time the Joker has taken the city hostage.
Are you done with that?
Yeah, I'm done.
Well, let's just go take our business there.
Gotham City Limit. It's the comic book shop Jax deserves, but not the one.
All right. I get it. It's a great shop. Let's just go.
Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show.
You had mentioned before this started the older sort of stuff. Not that I don't know if you said it sucked or if it was whack, but if it just wasn't interesting to you.
It was a bit of a turnoff.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Of course, it's the art style, right?
Sure.
And so, Secret Wars being one of the first big books that I bought,
Right.
The art was beautiful, and that kind of continued to launch me into it along with Dawn of X and all
Sure.
of that stuff. But I would go back and read the classic Thor or whatever, the classic Gambit. I bought this Gambit book, and it wasn't a singular story. It was a bunch of different
like an
stories over
anthology.
time.
Right.
And I didn't really understand how trades work, but it's a lot of the older animation. It's harder to read. It's not as easy on the eyes with the text bubbles the way that they are nowadays. And I also feel like when I look at some of these older comic books, the panels are filled with text.
Yeah.
It's like reading a novel with.
So,
with
what's
That
funny?
joke I made about that Claremont.
You know what's funny is that's something I like the most about comics from back in the days. You get your money's worth.
Gotcha.
Like, it's like, oh shit, like, yeah, like I get a lot of, like, it's Stan Lee writing a shit ton of words.
So you're into the long form part of it. I'll say that there are times when I've gotten just a single issue comic book that I wanted to see if it was good or not. Half the time I'm like barely paying attention to it. I'm flying through it and just paying attention to the emotions on the faces and the panels.
Sure.
And reading all of the words and I'm flying through the pages, and every now and then I'm like, as a comic book collector, like, don't I want to stop and appreciate the
I
art?
do the same thing. I got to stop myself at because I feel like the culture has shifted with writing comic books. Where like if you were to pick up a Claremont X-Men, it's filled with so much. Well, I mean, and I think Claremont is a unique case because he loves like exposition and monologue boxes, whatever it may be. But I've noticed like around like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, they started doing away with like the exposition boxes or monologue thought bubbles. It's very rare,
Frank Miller, dude, he's wordy too.
Yes, well, I think Frank Miller comes from just that cloth of like, when that was very popular, and he can still like bring it to like a more modern approach.
I think so. For history's sake, what came first were pulps. And those were essentially like the Netflix of like the 1920s, which essentially was you could buy, like, Pulp Fiction is called such because it was printed on cheap-ass paper made from wood pulp that you could get for like a nickel, you know. And during the Depression, that's a big deal. You need entertainment. You got to have your mind off of how fucked up the economy is. So you could buy these shitty-ass magazines, and they had crime stories, romance stories, any kind of story you could think of. Anthology, science fiction, horror, all that stuff.
Is that where like Dick Tracy comes from?
A little after.
No,
But
okay.
but the idea of Dick Tracy is definitely based off of like a pulp character, right? So there were no pictures. I mean, there were like one or two like illustrations, but not like comics. So essentially you had to read like a story. And back then everybody did. Those pulps ended up influencing comic book creators. So the reason why a lot of those comic book magazines, because essentially it's not like they were like, hey, these are comic books. It's like, this is a magazine you can buy. Those magazines essentially had a lot of verbiage to basically give little kids a taste for like, this is like pulp, but for kids. Right?
That makes a lot of sense.
So like, you're like, yeah, this is really wordy. Well, you know, that was the form of entertainment back then.
I wonder how much this contributes to that, you know, is that in the beginning days, setting up all of these layers to characters and layers to interactions with all these different characters, setting up the story for Wolverine the first time or over the first 20, 30 years
Sure.
is a lot different than throwing together a Wolverine story nowadays where everybody already understands the complex layers to him.
I think to your point, at some point, comic books just they shifted from being, because I remember reading something we were saying like Roy Thomas and Stan Lee's like
Roy.
that era of writers, and just Marvel in particular. Every issue needed to be accessible to a new reader. I think nowadays it's sort of like, look, these characters have been around so long. There's no need for us to keep telling you about what's happened or the origin.
Or there's something to be said about that. Like, Botter and I were on the phone talking about this because we were like, yo, how are we going to talk to Brian about some of this old guy shit? Where essentially, like, I don't know if you've come in contact with it, but you could look at some, even in the 90s, there's examples of comics where you'll see a little box appear. Like, you'll see the panel, Wolverine will hit like a dude, slash a guy up, and then the guy will be like, yeah, it's not like I did this to your sister, or something like that. And then it'll be like,
See Wolverine issue 30,
something, right? Mm-hmm. Because back then continuity mattered. And like Botter said, if this was your first issue, you would want they didn't want you to be left in the dust, essentially.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, you know, I wanted to feel exceptional coming into the comic book game so late, and I think that's why it's a little bit great for me is I don't, you know, they can do these overarching stories. They don't have to sell you on an episodic level the way that they had to do back in the day for somebody like Wolverine, you know. But they can do these overarching stories that's so much more complex and has so much more of a payoff, you know, and they don't have to worry so much about making sure that every issue is acceptable to somebody new. They don't have to do that. And maybe and I'm spitballing here.
No. I'll say they kind of are worrying.
Look. I will add to your spitball. It's also because, once again, the big two in particular, their bread and butter isn't comic books
right,
anymore.
it's movies.
So, I mean, their attention to, or even like care of like, well, we need to make sure any new reader, it feels welcome. I don't think it's nearly as strong anymore.
Right. Well, and the media's changed too.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, like you got to, I was going to say, so I brought a bunch of books over and I was going to show you, have you ever seen like movie storyboards?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, anytime a director wants to plan a shot, sometimes he'll draw like a rudimentary picture, or he'll hire artists to draw like, this is where I want to put the camera in this succession, in this sequential order. It's essentially a comic book, right? Mm-hmm. Well, before there was like, dude, you got like comic books existed before TV. It was just weird to think about. And for a kid growing up, like that was like their movies. Like if they didn't, movies weren't like they were. The best thing about a comic book is that you didn't need a budget for the imagination, right? If you wanted to create an explosion in New York City where Dr. Doom and like this crazy looking technology comes over and then like aliens come over and all that stuff, it's limited only by your imagination and your talent, right? So nowadays it's like, well, they can recreate all that stuff in a film. And on top of that, right now, it's popular. So the idea is more or less like, how do we tie these comic books into the existing movie properties as opposed to vice versa?
That makes a lot of sense. That was one of my big points. The first episode you guys had me on was that everything I'm reading is like, oh, how can this tie into the MCU later on down the road? I'm thinking that to some degree, Dawn of X and the Krakoa story and all of that might be what they pull from.
Might show up later,
you know. So and that's all really exciting. I love that, but I also feel that. We live in the age of like Etsy and stuff like that, and it's kind of nice to have that single issue comic book. So
a tailor-made sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's to me it's different. It's easier to wait for the trade and read the story, but it's kind of cool to go get the every week, like I'm on top of it. I don't have to avoid the spoilers on any subreddits that I go to, know.
Right, right.
It's just keeping up with the story and just riding along with the hype. And to me, hype dies when you got to wait for so long. I'll put hype into something else.
So speaking about like Dawn of X, I know your pull list in its early incarnation was like Savage Avengers. I think you were collecting like House of X, Power of X. How is that? Like, what are some of the titles on your pull list today?
So I actually tried to cull my pull list a little bit and get rid of things that I was like, oh, I'm forced to buy it if he puts it in my hand.
Did you just say the word cull?
Yeah, he did.
You had to cull your... Dude, this guy sounds like fucking Thanos, man. Yeah. He was like, you see the thing about a pull list. Everyone
I'm that guy who uses big words and then Googles them and they're like, did I use that correctly?
No, dude, that was probably the most savage way to describe. Like, you could have just said, yeah, I just removed a few titles. You were like, I culled my pool list. I decided to create pool genocide.
Read comic books. I wanted to be a little more interesting. I had to murder this comic.
Wait. You know what's funny? That's interesting, too, is that some of the jokes that we make, but also, like, when I was a little kid reading comic books, those writers were using words that I didn't know. And they would say, and even languages I didn't know. Chris Claremont being one of them. Like, I learned Russian from Chris Claremont. Like, I learned German from Chris Claremont. I learned Canadian slang from Chris Claremont.
I think I was introduced to a ton of scientific theories and just science through Fantastic Four.
Right. I learned what a milksop was thanks to Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Like, the idea, it's funny, I'm just playing off your joke earlier. I mean, it was our joke, but like what you said, like, was like, yeah, I culled my pull list. It's like, that sounds like something Dr. Doom would say about, if he had a pull, at Gotham, like, he would be like, yes, I no longer require the House of X. I've read them all. But we have a variant you had. I will cull that variant. All right, man. I mean, I guess we'll try and sell it to somebody else.
So what's on your pull list now?
I don't, I haven't added much to it. I think I recently, I branched out into a couple other things and I got the Batman vs. Ninja Turtles. That was like the first DC I got into was the crossover for Batman Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, not bad.
So I added the Ninja Turtles Power Rangers that's coming on now. So I added that to my pull list.
Shout outs to Bobo, who keeps sending me screenshots of like certain panels or just artwork. That book looks so beautiful. Yeah. But I'm like, damn, a TMNT and Power Rangers crossover has got me like my 90s, like my 90s kid, like super giggity right now.
That's what it's doing for me too. And when I first saw it, I'm looking at, man, I'm spending $40-$50 on comic books. I'm not going to add that one.
You're flying too close to the sun, Brian. You're flying too close to the sun.
So I passed over it. And then, during the COVID crisis, I'm at home, I'm looking for stuff and I'm, watching some YouTube videos and this guy gets all hype about it. I'm like, oh, yes, all right. I want to get on that too.
Oh, God.
So, and that was another one of my questions. Have you been using different resources for whether it's comic book releases, announcements, reviews? Like, are you going to any websites? Are you viewing any YouTube channels centered on comic books or whatever it may be?
Two YouTube channels that are coming to my mind. Variant, I think, is one of them. And then Comic Book Herald.
Okay.
Another one.
I know that one. That's
so I watch those two, and then I'm on previews.com to see everything that's coming out every week. And I go through all the different tabs of all the, the IDWs and the booms, and I'm looking for something to catch my eye. Because I just want, good story to read. But I am getting to that point where I want full stories, and it is kind of tough to hop on an issue 1 and then think, wow, for the next 6 months to a year, I'm going to be watching this thing unfold, when it is nicer to just
wait till it's done.
wait till it's done, which I just did that.
Well,
so here's something that I got into, Descender.
Okay.
Jeff Lemire.
Yep.
I
I like how he's like, you guys heard of this Dustin Wynn guy?
Hey, sorry. So, anyways,
no, it's
I
good.
got like all 6 of the trades and was
Okay.
able to read all of it, and I didn't necessarily plow through it. I got the first one as a gift from somebody.
Okay.
And it really impressed me. So, and it was super cheap too. So I bought the next one, and then
Was this a gift
then
to
I bought
yourself?
The next 4.
Yeah, he's like, here
It's
you
like,
go,
I got a gift
Brian.
from somebody. Thanks, me.
Somebody who's very important.
Thanks, me.
He even wrapped it up too. Here you go, Brian. What could this be?
But that was awesome though. I really like that story, and now I'm getting into the Ascender. I haven't read that, but I just bought the first trade, and I think the second trade comes out like the end of this month.
So
or
have you been making a conscious decision to get more trades rather than floppies or weeklies?
Floppies. Floppies. I don't know. I think my hand was forced with all of the COVID stuff.
Yeah, that is an interesting aspect in
Yo,
regards
COVID
to your
killed comics.
Yeah, in regards to your
They really did, because somebody I was super into. I was Cosmic Ghost Rider. I was like,
Oh, shit.
I love this guy. I
Donny
love
Cates
everything.
killed it on that.
And the 5th and final issue of Revenge of the Cosmic Ghost Rider came out on digital, and so I was expecting that on floppy, and they didn't release the floppy, so I got no flops, man. Like, what am I going to do? Will they ever go back and flop it out, or
Look, hold on. Speaking as a nerd,
it out.
I'm going to tell you right now, there is nothing worse to have your hobby returned to as floppy, okay? We already get a bad rap. I prefer a hardback trade. Hard.
Nothing floppy about
Nothing
this.
floppy about that.
6-issue
Like a
collection.
man.
Well, all right. Actually, speaking about some of these, like the verbiage that we use in comics, I did notice that was one thing that was kind of like funny and like, oh man, that's kind of adorable. Was when we had you on, it was like some of the phrases that you use or you weren't familiar with, like trades, anthologies, floppies, etc. Like, have you gotten better at it?
Wait. What? Like, give me an example.
Which this is not a big.
This is not,
it's not a big riff. It's just that
We've all made these
Like, I
mistakes.
just couldn't help but notice every time you said it. And I listened back to the episode this morning so I could kind of get re-familiar. And I noticed that you said, instead of calling it just, comic book artwork or, the artwork, blah, 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 you'd be like, the animation, the animation. And I was like, I honed in on it. I was
Butter's like, nothing's moving.
yeah, I was
It's so
like, who the
wrong.
hell
It was
calls
so
it
wrong.
animation?
You know what, though?
But he's not wrong if you really looked at
No,
it.
he's 100% wrong. But
no.
But the idea
technically
is
two comic book panels
the
is
idea-
an animation mix.
It is
missing like a whole bunch of animations in the middle.
You can reach for it.
It's
I'll
sequential
give it
art.
to
It's
you.
sequential art. But that's good because in your brain, that's the connection you make. Like, you're like, these things are moving. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, I know you understand the stationary.
I just said illustrations earlier, and I immediately I was like, oh, that's the right comic.
No, that actually is right.
I mean, yeah, but I don't hear you guys saying illustrate something. You got me thinking.
No, man.
The other thing I had noticed, I was like, was you were talking about how you picked up Silver Surfer Black, which is a great comic book series, and you had a question about like where it fits into the continuity or like the origin of ego, and you mentioned that you went to the cartoon and watched the episode.
Wow.
And I was like, it still worked though. I mean,
It works. You're like, God damn it, the old ways. The old ways.
But it
got
worked rather than because you also mentioned on that same episode that I believe the quote was, "I have no interest in backlog. I'm only interested in uncharted territory." When we were talking about going back and collecting old issues, whatever back issues, you're like, "No, not really." And I thought it was just interesting that with that mindset, you went back to the cartoon, got spun up on ego, and then you were like, "Well, how does this fit into the comics?" And it was like, "Oh, damn, he thinks the comic world and the cartoons like kind of tie in," and it's like, "No, not really."
And yeah, that's right.
So,
I thought wrong.
No. Well, I'll agree with your point. There's no sense in going through the backlog for backlog's sake. Like anybody that says like, well, you got to fucking pay your dues and fucking go back and look. Botter and I weren't born in the '60s, okay? So we didn't pay our dues. What we had were freaking Flair trading cards.
Same.
Ooh,
We had
man.
the cartoons, and they were our gateway drug in. And of course, Botter had his dad, right? So we would just watch like cartoons and be like, that's cool. Wait, does that happen in the comics? Neat. How do I find that one? And thankfully, the big two being who they are, love reprinting old shit. So that way, little nerds that grew up will be like, I want a collection of these trades that tell the story from the cartoon. And usually, you were always pleasantly surprised because in the comics, they could take time and develop the story a lot more.
Definitely.
The art was better. The stories were better. The characters were well defined. I mean, and that's something that you're like, oh man, that's kind of neat. So don't anybody that says like you fucking need to go back and read everything, it's like you don't really, just what you're interested in.
Yeah, and I take that to heart, I don't ever take it too seriously. But we'll use Silver Surfer Black as an example. I loved that, and I loved the art, everything about it. And then I was like, man, Silver Surfer is a really cool guy. I've always liked Silver Surfer, so I wanted to go back and read some earlier Silver Surfer comics. And the ones that I pulled up, the story was building to a different climax. It had nothing to do with Silver Surfer turning black in the cosmos, which there's so much left on the table of where that's going to go and how that ties into the other stories that's going on right now.
Right.
So, reading the backlog issues of Silver Surfer weren't really exciting to me, but, I love the MCU. That's what, launched me back into comics. So all media is what I'm looking for. That's why I go, to find the cartoon. Oh, what does the cartoon got to offer me?
Sure.
And yeah, I was and still am kind of confused by how the cartoon gets to say, oh, Ego interacted with Silver Surfer this way, and then, Silver Surfer Black, he has him interacting with him another way. Like, it doesn't make sense. But then, of course, it was never tied to a single continuity ever.
The answer is money, Brian. The answer is money. How do we get little kids to like this, and how can we make a toy out of it?
What's I know that you've mentioned a couple of writers that are some of your favorites. I think you've mentioned Donny Cates, Jonathan Hickman. Is there anyone else on that list? And what about artists? Have you started gravitating towards a certain art style or artist in general, or specifically?
Probably not gravitating towards, but appreciating and wanting more of certain art styles. So like Dan Mora was somebody that you put me on, and now anything by Dan Mora, I would give it a shot. I want to read that and look at that art. Writer-wise, I don't know if I've come across anybody new. I think last show I talked about Donny Cates, Jonathan Hickman, and I think I've gotten further and deeper into Donny Cates and wanting to explore that. So, I am looking for other people, but, with Descender and Jeff Lemire,
he's got, like, a very beloved catalog. Like, people who like Jeff Lemire really enjoy it. Like, he's one of these writers that everything just seems to hit. Like, he doesn't have, like, a clear flunk that is universally like hated on. Like, it's pretty. His catalog is real strong,
and I can build some hype around.
Unless you're Ashley, who doesn't like his artwork, but whatever.
There was that, and then Walt Simonson is, I guess, a huge name that everybody knows. That
really
for me, I was like, I've heard that name before. Where have I heard that name before? And then I think I said something to you about it, and you were like, oh yeah, legend status. But I picked up Ragnarok from him. I had to read all of this. I guess apparently he wrote Thor forever, and then Ragnarok.
I like how he's like, apparently this guy Walt Simonson.
And we're over here getting old guy. We're getting like old guy heated.
We're like, no, I'm just like so proud of this guy. He's learning. It's like, yeah, the guys heard of this dude Stan Lee. He's got a bright future, I think.
But Ragnarok was tight because, the little bit of hype that I was able to read to get into that was that, he had to tell the story of Thor that Marvel wanted him to tell for so long. And, he was able to start over and just recreate it from his idea of Norse mythology and recreate it for what he wanted. So I read it, and I was kind of questionable at first, but ended up loving it, So that's just where I'm at right now. I'm branching out, loving the new things that I find, and just trying to find other things to stay into.
What's been like the most I guess surprising and rewarding thing that you've tried that you were a little hesitant on?
Oh, it's probably Descender.
Descender, okay.
Yeah.
What's been one that like you definitely were like, I gave it a shot, but I didn't like it?
Iron Man 2020, when that came out, and I think there was a couple of titles that came out with that, like 2020 Force Works, 2020 this, 2020 that.
Yeah.
I bought the first issue of Iron Man 2020, and like I wanted to return it.
So let me ask you this, kind of a heavy question. Are you at the point right now where you're transitioning from comic books being used as sort of a way to pass the time and entertain you? Could you see them as a legit art form in the sense where, like, you would take a chance on an artist or a writer, even if it wasn't necessarily like something you would dig normally, and just respect it for the fact that it's different?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say that that's what's...
This is a loaded question, by the way.
Well, that's what's been my interest the entire time. I love the medium of comic book because, you know, I'm reading, I'm looking at art, I'm imagining, and, you know, and I love overarching things. I like the payoff of, you know, I put my time into it, and in the end, everything kind of comes together and makes it great. So I've always loved that. And yeah, and I'll say, you know, my music tastes have always been, if I like an artist, I'm going to buy their album, and I'm going to listen to it one to done. I'll listen to the interludes. I listen to everything because I want to hear what they have to say. And so it is exciting to start to learn more about the writers and the artists, and, you know, to read more Donny Cates because I like Donny Cates.
Sure.
When I picked up God Country, I was blown away.
That was so good, right?
It was so good. And now he's working on something else that is kind of like an offshoot of that's supposed to be releasing in the next month or two, and I'm so excited for that. You know, so yeah, it is. I've always looked at it as an art form. I think that'd be unfair to anybody that said it wasn't.
So that said, I would highly recommend Bill Sienkiewicz as an artist, because he has sort of an avant-garde kind of style that it's polarizing. Some people are like, I don't like it. Other people are like, it's fucking brilliant. And since you're kind of into Marvel, I would recommend the shit he did with New Mutants. Bill Sienkiewicz's artwork for New Mutants and his stuff on Daredevil, Love and War, is very good.
Yeah.
But it's like very like scratchy, sort of like flickered like paint. He's prolific because the guy can do a lot of things, but he definitely has a style that a lot of people that maybe you like now, you could be like, oh, yo, they're aping this guy's like line work. Not literally, but like they were definitely like influenced by this guy for sure.
I follow that.
He's influenced a lot of people.
Yeah.
But his style is kind of like weird. And he makes without trying to sound pretentious. No, fuck it. It is pretentious and it's not wrong. The pretense being that his artwork is high art, and I highly back that up. It is high art. That is a good pretense, and I stand behind it.
100%.
It is.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
I went Googling, you know, just because I'm so new to it, and I came in where I came in, like, you know, what are the top 10 comic books of all time? You know? And you know, unfortunately for me, most of those lists just have like a bunch of Batman comics on it, which I'm not against that. I feel like one day I'm really going to be able to get into it and be enriched by all the content that DC has to offer. But you know, I'm looking for stuff like that. So if that's not on a list somewhere,
there's
it needs
stuff
to be,
like that
you
in
know?
Batman as well. I just since you're already in Marvel territory, and I'm not trying to freaking. It's like when a child discovers his dad's prog rock albums, and he's just like, I like listening to Rush, and I like listening to Pink Floyd, and then he picks up the King Crimson album, and you're like, put that down. You're not ready for that. You're not ready for that. There was a time when DC was known as the high art studio. So
is that where they're always kind of seen as on the top? Is that where that comes from?
I mean, still kinda.
Well, I mean that and like their fucking catalog of IPs.
Right. The intellectual properties that
what's
they
so
have.
weird, and this might take the conversation in a different direction all of a sudden, but you know, so DC always seems like the granddaddy, right? And Marvel, however successful it's been, has always kind of been seen as like it's the street version of DC. You know, it's coming up.
I wouldn't say that. It's just that DC had. You got to imagine in a world where there was no TV, nothing except newspapers and print. DC had 30 years head start.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know
We're talking 1939. Earlier than that, that's like 1939 is like when they first started acquiring IPs. Before that, there were still comic books, and those characters still existed, and they were still making their mark. Marvel didn't come around until like fully crystallized Marvel, because there was Timely, but like we're just talking about Marvel. Didn't really come around until early 60s.
Gotcha.
So you got to imagine those guys read DC.
What is it about Marvel that continues to warrant that level of loyalty? Because it sounds like for DC, you're not really interested at all.
I don't know. That's a leading question, Butter. That is a leading question.
I mean,
Maybe a little
am I
unfair.
lying? Am I lying?
Well, no, I think the biggest hype comes from the MCU. And Marvel's doing well in that aspect. Whereas the DC movies, all of them were decent on their own. They haven't really gained that momentum and that strength and the speed. The Marvel's going to be doing stuff for the next 20 years, and you feel confident that it's all going to be high-level stuff. And then you look at DC, and it's like they're scrambling to do what Marvel's doing right now, and they're not succeeding.
But let's be fair, because we're only talking about comics and not movies.
No, I agree, and that's why I brought it up. Was that it's interesting to see where, like.
And to be fair, I feel like once that bug bites you, there ain't no turning back.
Because. Like she said at one point, I mean, and I feel like between Marvel and DC, it's always like, 2 years Marvel's leading, everyone loves what they're putting out, and then DC will lead for whatever it may be. But it's interesting to hear that the movies for you have dictated the level of quality when that's not. Like you brought up, just the DC movies are bad, so the comic books, it was a weird correlation for me where. I can probably name a couple of titles out from DC right now that are really good, but that optic, I wonder how many other new readers, how that impacts readership.
All right, so maybe stick with me here. If
I got 2 from C. That means I was on the side.
Well, no, it's just yeah. Go ahead, Brian. Yeah.
Well, I was just no, man, you go ahead.
A third.
Well, I was just going to say that
Drop the mic, Butter.
I think because my experience isn't different from his. I got into Marvel before I got into DC, and then I realized that as somebody who's been collecting long enough, if you like comics, you got to like it all. And then you can't just realize, like for me, I don't have house loyalty. I have art loyalty. I have my taste loyalty. So where I'm at is essentially what am I into? What do I like? Who am I digging on? Why do I like these guys? Like, it's like I look at comic books like I look at music, right? So, like, I'll listen to an artist and be like, man, that's really good. What kind of stuff did they like? What did they like growing up listening to? Like, oh, they like Little Richard growing up? Well, maybe he's not my cup of tea, but I'll expose myself to him just because I want to get inside their brain. And then I end up liking some songs that, one thing leads to another.
I definitely know for a fact that there's going to be, a Batman book out there that y'all recommend to me, and it's going to be an amazing
Dude, there
read.
might be a Dead Man book that you like. You don't even know what the hell is going on.
It's not really hard to
fucking
please me.
Elastic Man or Plastic Man book.
I like a lot of things like that, but when I talk about what I'm liking from Marvel right now and it's uncharted territory, I don't know if I can get the same vibe from DC.
Right.
Their territory is retelling Batman's Gotham adventures.
That's what you think.
That's the same thing can be said about Spider-Man or any of these guys.
Well, not necessarily. Well, so what about the Donny Cates cosmic direction? Cosmic Ghost Rider, Silver Surfer.
That's
Black.
weird that I'm like defending DC like this.
No. It's like he's talking about Donny Cates he did cosmic shit first, and we're just gonna be like, Abbott and Lannick, and then like Ron Lim and
I got you.
Not, but to a degree, like the Guardians of the Galaxy be having Cosmic Ghost Rider in it, like that's, to me, that's uncharted territory. So I'm ready for this ride to see where they take it, and we don't know. But if I read another Batman book, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the new Batman book not going to end with him still being the same old Batman and having to wake up and fight the same old Joker the next time?
Now, you say that, but Spider-Man's still going to have to be hustling every day.
Well, Spider-Man's not my top superhero.
Right, but the X-Men is always just going to be about persecution. It's always just going to be about, hey, don't judge a book by its cover.
True.
It's always going to be about this.
But the Krakoa and the Hickman reinvention of...
Reinvention. I love it.
Well, the fact that they can die and be brought back to life, and then they don't want to use that.
I mean, I admit he's introduced some cool, wild concepts.
Is it at least a tiny bit of uncharted territory? Have they done that?
Not really.
But
it's not. But that's not bad. See, the thing is that you have to understand, comics at their minimum, at I don't know if I should say this. To a novice/outsider, at their best, they are entertainment. To people who revere them, who like them, who spend their time like dissecting and looking at every panel and saying, "Oh, that's kind of neat," or even people who draw, they look at them as a venerated form of art, right? Both people are right. So, because of that, sometimes the nature of the business requires people to err on safety as opposed to avant-garde, right? So, what I like about comics is usually the guys that are really good at it can do both, can take an interesting idea and also make it approachable. So somebody can roll up on this that's never, ever had any experience and just be like, wow, this is kind of good. I mean, look, Botter and I could definitely tell you there were some shit Marvel comics. Like Wolverine in the 90s having no nose with a bandana on. You know exactly what I'm talking about. When he got his adamantium removed, it's horrible. It is dog shit.
It totally sucks.
It's so bad. Cool. It's so bad.
When that was coming out, how were people viewing that when it was coming out? Like on a weekly basis, were people bashing
Nobody
it?
liked it. The Clone Saga, everybody... Oh, I can remember reading in Wizard magazine, Wizard saying, this is shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is horrible.
Was it because of the...
That was definitely when, like, you had to be in the shops to hear... everyone. I mean, you had like Wizard and some internet forums, but it was primarily let me go in the shop and see what the vibe is.
Oh yeah,
like walking into fucking Suncoast
word of mouth.
And Ty was in
being
there,
tapped into the hive mind, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
So everybody knows everybody hate the last season of Game of Thrones, you know. So, but like, is it a thing where I can still appreciate this Wolverine run?
No one, dude. It was universally lauded as fuck suck.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And from a Marvel standpoint, was that they didn't have a good artist, so they just wanted to throw on a bullshit artist.
No,
and like, hey, let's just
Joe Madureira was drawing that shit, and it was good. It just was not a good story. It was like a bad visual direction.
Do we blame the writer or do we blame Marvel for that bad Wolverine run?
I'm not going to blame Mad Joe.
No. The writer and the artist take their cues from the editor, right? Yeah. So the editor-in-chief doing... Who was that? Bob Harris? Would that have been Bob Harris?
Probably.
Maybe. I don't know. Tom
DeFalco.
Tom DeFalco or Bob Harris around that time was like basically running the ship. And they decided that... Dude, also remember... I guess the point I'm trying to make is that right now you're on the right track. You're following writers and artists. You're doing you're following what you like, right? Yep. So if what you like is Marvel right now, awesome. I would say don't discount a house just because of brand loyalty, because a lot of those writers and artists you like are freelance.
Thank you, Tammy. I was about to say
they are freelance and they work for both, and they do badass work for both. So it's not like I'm not defending Batman or DC. I'm more or less saying you're on the right track.
Good stuff is good stuff,
right? Don't forget that they have another body of work across the pond. You know, like over there in the as Stan Lee would say, brand Ech. You know,
simple-minded fans will convince you that there is a such thing as house loyalty. But when you look at the people writing these comic books, they ain't got no house loyalty.
So. No, but also...
Honestly, that's absurd to me.
Well, let me also say
house loyalty is absurd to me. Like, y'all are arguing like I shouldn't have house loyalty. And I'm like, house loyalty? These are comic...
Dude.
What?
Dude.
Like, I'll go to Walmart and then I'll go to Target if Walmart doesn't have what Target's got.
This is something that Butter and I used to, like, get, like...
When we were little. Never read no DC
Dude,
comics.
Little kid... Yeah, when I was a little kid, it was, like, about... You bought into the marketing.
Yep.
You bought it. Like, and the funny thing is that some of the things that made Stan Lee so good was that he was able to do, like, we just lost, I think we should bring it up. We just lost Denny O'Neil. Freaking, I got into DC when Denny O'Neil was editor-in-chief. And I remember at the end of every DC comic I would read, there would be a Batman, there would be a message. It was called From the Den. And it was like kind of like a kid drawing of Denny O'Neil's face. It looked like a little crayon. And it was awesome because I got to be like, hey, this guy's kind of neat. He looks like Conan O'Brien. Like, he's got, like, glasses. He's also a writer. He's a journalist. I ended up becoming a journalist. Like, the dude is very, very, very awesome. And he wrote for DC. Quite possibly one of the most appropriate comic book series that you could read right now, Green Lantern and Green Arrow. And I think, did you put something on your Facebook about it?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that when we were little, there was brand loyalty. and you were like, oh, you were either a Marvel guy or you were a DC guy. And DC people got a bad rap. But the problem is that there was a little truth to it because DC was still trying to like figure out what they were because they're older. They're the big brother, right? So like Big Brother has to freaking take all the hits and fall down and get caught by the parents and go out fucking drinking and whatever. Little brother sees what Big Brother does and knows how to dodge all that shit because Big Brother did it first, right? So the idea, what people are like, yeah, but like, you know, Spider-Man is more human character than fucking Superman, you know, like because he fights life and like he still has to pay the bills and whatever. And then you forget that that idea is a Superman idea too. The idea that he has a job and he has to hide who he is behind this sort of clumsy dude, and he has to keep the biggest secret in the world for the sake of people that he loves. Like that idea is not an original Marvel idea. It's a DC idea. It's just that Marvel took it and ran with it in a different way. So in order to get the full experience, I'd say you'd have to follow the writers and the artists that do work for both houses. And you could see how they take those characters and essentially tell the story of America.
Really well said.
That's really well said, and I appreciate that.
I want to go back to I want to piggyback off C's earlier question because I thought it was a really good one about seeing comic books as an art form. What do you think is the most important lesson, if any, that you've gotten from comic books?
And also, which comics have challenged you to be like, ooh, not what I'd get into, but you know, all right.
Like, I guess I'm asking, have you learned anything from comic books outside of just entertainment's sake?
How do you mean, like have I pulled any moral lessons from comic books?
He's like, no, I'm not 10. Come on. And Butter and I are like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, we don't do that either.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because something else Cesar just said made me think of the 7 basic plots. You know, apparently there. You know, have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
It's really hard to find any deviation from those 7, and so any story is a retelling.
Unless you're Grant Morrison. Never mind.
Yeah, I got it.
I mean, I'll read all the Grant Morrison, but you know, that's I don't know where I'm going with that, to be honest. What was the question again?
I had asked, what have you learned? Like, have you learned a moral lesson from comic books that you might have not had originally going in? And then I think C's follow-up question was, which comic has challenged you the most?
So I don't know if I've necessarily learned any moral lessons. I actually, you know, to toot my own horn, I think I'm pretty enlightened on morals and stuff. If anything, comic books reinforce that stuff for me. So
we got a regular Buddha over here. Jesus Christ!
Hey,
Jesus Christ!
I think reading them so young, they definitely gave me some. But I mean, now it's just same here, just reinforced.
Of course, I'm 33 years old now, so I've come across a lot of life's hardships and had to learn. And then, you know, America has worshipped the heroes since I was born, so you know, I've seen these stories and I've learned those morals already. But like I said, it does reinforce a lot of the things, and to me, that's what science fiction and fantasy is so great for. Fantasy, maybe not so much as science fiction. Science fiction is like, you know, it poses all of these different situations.
It's philosophy wrapped in outer space.
It is, and it makes me think of, man, okay, I don't have to deal with that, but if I ever did have to deal with that, that's how I should react. You know, like the whole, you know, and Descender, and then kind of like an iRobot, everything that have to do with AI and robots. You know, we kind of know how we should land on that morally and with our standards. We know that now, even though we're not there. So that's why that's the moral part that I love about comic books is, you know, okay, if you're giving me a new situation that I can kind of learn from the situation without having to go from myself, I can learn. But, I don't know if I'm learning too many morals.
Well, so there's something right there, right? And something that you said is one of the biggest reasons I like comics is that they are experiments in philosophy sometimes, right? And something that Botter, I think, was trying to touch on was that they're like, the morality of comic books is also an experiment in philosophy, right? Because you had a lot of these guys that when they were writing or drawing these comics, they were influenced by stuff that how they were on the inside, right? And that kind of like splashes out on the page. And how they think on certain issues also gets splashed on the page as well. I mean, granted, they are trying to sell a product and there is a message and we have, you know, we got messaging and marketing. We need to hit on all these things and blah, blah, you know. But at the same time, you had these writers and artists that were talking about like, hey, like remember again, I'll bring up Denny O'Neil, rest in peace, who he's talking to Green Lantern, and there's a dude that approaches him. This old black guy comes up to him and says, you know, I see you fight for the green man and the purple man, but you never fight for the black man. Now, as corny as that sounds, in the 70s, if you were reading that comic, that shit hit you in the face.
I can imagine.
It's still one of my favorite panels.
It didn't destroy your morality. It didn't say it didn't say anything that you're like, well, yeah, of course. Like, that guy kind of makes an interesting point. But it's an experiment. Like, what do you say to a cop from outer space who is responsible for a sector of the universe, right? Like he's a space cop, right? As silly as that sounds, right? And he's got this ring and he's doing good throughout the galaxy. And not just on a cosmic scale, but on a smaller scale, somebody asks him, a resident of a little bluish green planet called Earth, says, hey man, what about us, dude? Like,
that's one of those things that it gives you chills, and you're like, yeah, get him. Like,
well, it wasn't even so much a get him. It was kind of like, did you ever stop to think? Mm-hmm. Like, and the dude, because the dude knows Green fucking Lantern has saved the universe more than once, right? Mm-hmm. He's just like saying, like, how does this system work?
Yeah. Well, you know, back in the 70s, that might have been kind of crazy, you know, and nowadays that's not the sensitivity. So to me, that's get him.
History.
You're reinforcing what I already feel and tell him what he needs to know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But to go back to your question about are there any specific stories going on that I've pulled any kind of morals from, something that I've always thought of in my entire life of watching cartoons, animes, movies, whatever, something big that has stuck out to me is that there is reason on both sides, right? So in a war, there really are no victors. Both sides, they're fighting for what they want to fight for, right?
Sure.
So recently, something that's kind of maybe highlighted that a little bit is the Dawn of X stuff, where, you know, all of the mutants are now living together. So you got Apocalypse living with Magneto, living with Xavier, and well, maybe not living in the same room or whatever, but you know,
I would like that glass of milk. Hey, listen, Apocalypse.
That's a great idea.
It's like, look, we're
Three's Company.
yeah, like Magneto's just staring at him like, Apocalypse, huh? What's your real name again? And Sabah Nur? What is that, Egyptian? Fuck you. Fuck you for my ancestors.
But like with
I
Golden
wasn't.
Girls.
Oh shit, I was alive back then. Sorry about enslaving the Jews, Magneto. Didn't mean it. Did not mean it. I didn't. Meanwhile, fucking Professor X is like, oh Jesus Christ. Like,
Jean, I need you.
Jean, make me an omelet now.
Give me a real world road rules.
Right? Can you imagine
all the good guys
Can you imagine
and
like
bad
the
guys.
camera's too small to cover Apocalypse's mask? You just see like his crotch and his hands. And
He's
just
trying
like,
to get eggs out of the refrigerator.
He's just like, guys, I just really want to get along with everybody here. I know I've pretty much been a dick for this long time, but I'm turning over a new leaf.
So that's what's happening in the books right now.
That's awesome.
That's exactly what's happening in the
Sold.
books right now. And you know, all of this is about to lead into X of Swords, and on every bit of X of Swords art that you see, you got Apocalypse out there leading all of the good
That's
guys.
my dude, man.
So
I love Apocalypse so much.
but there's some philosophy to dig out of that, to think that, you know, we all need to live together. And even though that this guy is a villain in this trade, in this issue, and in this series and all of that, you know, down the road, he's still alive and I'm still alive. And how do we compromise those feelings between somebody who's done something wrong in the past, maybe to everybody, or maybe even just done something wrong to you in the past? But, you know, now the mutants are all living together, and they're banding together by their one commonality, and trying to say like, oh, well, we have to forget everything that he's done in the past. And there's just a lot of layers of morality to that, you know.
So there's a little comic book called God Loves, Man Kills.
Isn't that coming back out? Aren't they re-releasing that?
We're not talking
It's
about
been
the
done like
re-release
5 times already. But
Okay.
essentially, that's what I'm saying. So like, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, the more you get into comics, the more you realize, not that the same stories are being told, but there are certain messages that are still relevant these days, you know, like, hey, get along with your brother. Hey, things aren't as black and white as you think they are. You know, take time, educate yourself. You know, if you're in self-doubt, that means you're in the right because you haven't come to some sort of concrete, I'm right about this, right? Like, it's okay. And that was crystallized best with the relationship between Charles Xavier and Magneto. And like, it's essentially Hickman grew up reading all this shit when he was young, so he knows. So this is his spin on it, right? So it's like, I'm not trying to be like, I mean, this fucking, we read it first when it was whatever. But there is something to, I don't think life is linear. I think life is cyclical, in my opinion. This is my opinion. So I think we will come across the same hardships in a circle until we learn to transcend them or we ignore them, and then we'll just keep going down the circle again. So I think the more you start reading comics, the more you'll be like, huh. You'll start getting all this, and these little moral experiments fit into small boxes with, panels and characters and spandex punching each other.
And that makes a lot of sense. And to me, that would, again, reinforce things that I know about the nature of the world and the nature of human interaction.
It's something it's something you'll come to appreciate.
A new villain, a new mask, still same old villainy and all
sure.
that.
Have you tried to get anyone else into collecting comic books? Because that's always, I feel like when you get to a certain point of just, you've read for a long time, you start
that question sounds so much like, have you accepted our Lord and Savior, Stanley, into your heart, and are you going out?
I'm like,
hi, I'm here to talk
making
to you
the pyramid scheme calls. So, hey, if you have a minute, I'd like to tell you a little bit.
Minute turns into 45.
I had like...
Are you with Primerica?
I had like my dad to lead me. And then, when I went to school, like I would talk about comics to my other friends. And like I got a few of them into comic books.
So
I had the same...
God bless you, man. My dad was like, "You're not gay, are you?" What?
Just reading comics.
All right.
I'm not successful.
Draw some girls, will you? Stop drawing these dudes.
Dad's putting some money into that. He's like, all right, I need to get you drawing skills because I want to see this stuff.
Pretty much. Pretty much. He was in the Navy.
So I have friends who are into everything that I'm into, but not necessarily into comics. And then so I got one friend, my boy Matt, who I work with, and so he'll actually like have conversations with me. He's like, oh, I've always thought about getting into it, but there's just so much, and there's so much backlog, and you have to deal with the people who are like, oh, you have to read this and this and this before you read that. The only success I had, I let him borrow my Cosmic Ghost Rider trade, and he read it, and he was like, oh, that was awesome, and I was like, I know that's awesome, but he's not going and buying new comic books, and I don't know if it's within my power to recreate that catalyst that sent me into going to buy the comic books, which I told you last time was being at Barnes & Noble, and I wanted to make a frivolous purchase, so I bought, one of the trades, and they gave me that little free preview issue where it was like, hey, House of X is coming. And I was like, whoa, Professor X is walking. Like, I want to read that. And so that's what got me into it. But, I showed him Cosmic Ghost Rider because I liked it so much. And he was like, that is worth liking. That is good. But there's going to be something that's like, I can't pass that up. That's too good. Who's his guy? He loves Spider-Man too, my boy Matt. Spider-Man, y'all keep saying Spider-Man. Spider-Man isn't necessarily that high on the list for me, although I love him.
Oh my God, I got to go.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, you can wrap this episode up for us?
Like, y'all probably have a list of like 20 characters that I can piss y'all off by like not
First off,
touting.
that's...
Well, Batman, off the bat, I was like, man, for someone that doesn't like Batman. I've never met anyone.
He didn't say he didn't like Batman.
Yeah,
He's just, look at him. Look
I'm gonna say.
It's unfair.
I'm just looking for a fight.
But it was like trolling people
I'm looking for a
hardcore.
fight. I'm looking for a fight.
Dude, when Dark Knight...
Yo, smash that like button, short box.
When Dark Knight came out and Heath Ledger Joker and that Batman, like at that time, I don't know what the MCU was doing. I don't know what the MCU was doing. That was the best superhero thing.
Iron Man.
That's where they were? Mm-hmm. And that was okay. Iron Man was a good movie for the time.
So
but Dark Knight was the best thing
smoking. Let me tell you, so that's something else, right? Like, this is you are now fording and you're the captain on a tiny little boat in a tumultuous sea of craziness, sir. You tapped into something that I forgot I was going to bring up when you mentioned movies. Marvel, as good as their movies are made, DC has to make but one really good Superman movie or one really good Batman movie, and it'll sweep any and all, any property. Dark Horse, Marvel, doesn't matter. Like, it will destroy them. It just has to be really good. And that only chalks up to how iconic those two characters are. And I'm talking about characters now, not just writers.
Superman and Batman.
Right. Like, as characters, their essence.
But how have the recent Superman movies, like Man of Steel?
Dude, there was a drought
I really liked Man of Steel.
Do you?
I really did.
Huh.
But to me, it was like, oh wow, that's how I would make a Dragon Ball Z movie if I ever did.
That's funny.
It was good, and I liked it.
Funny you should say that, considering Goku is a Superman ripoff. Anyway,
He just loves to piss me off.
Get out of my room.
look, I mean,
Hey, you gonna wrap this up?
Look, no, Dragon. I said
Now
Dragon.
I'm angry.
Look, hold on. Dragon Ball Z is a ripoff. I didn't say Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is the Monkey King, which is like a great story in Chinese
Journey
mythology.
to the West.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So
Superman movie being really good.
the idea is that you just have to have somebody tell a good Superman story because he's the progenitor.
Well, there's
Or Batman.
How safe is that forever though? If they don't continue to capitalize and grow the Superman brand, like who's to say that the kids who are growing up nowadays with nothing but Thor and Iron Man, they look at Thor and Iron Man like, yo, those are the top two series. No, I never liked that Superman movie and the new Ben Affleck Batman. Didn't
I can
really
answer
do
that
it,
question because I was that kid. There wasn't a Superman movie for a while after Christopher Reeve, right? Mm-hmm. There wasn't a Batman movie for a long time that was good after Tim Burton's first Batman movie, right? Because, Batman Returns, okay, it was fucking weird with Danny DeVito dripping that green shit out his mouth. Nobody, this is a fucking kids movie, man. You can't show that shit to fucking kids. He's like, just the pussy I've been looking for.
Ew,
And you're like, stop saying that. Penguin? And then... and then the Joel Schumacher movies come out, and you're like, God, Batman sucks right now. Like,
Wait, what were the Joe Schumacher movies?
Batman and Robin, Batman Forever,
all right.
like George Clooney and Val
With Mr.
Kilmer.
Freeze.
Right, yeah. Chill,
Terrible movies.
Horrible.
But great movies.
No.
Like as a kid, that's all you had.
So-
there was nothing better than that.
Okay, so now fast forward, like it's since Tim Burton's first Batman movie to Christopher Nolan's first Batman movie, there's a drought. Huge drought, right? Now, the drought is almost reversed, but it still works the same way. Oversaturation. There's oversaturation, right? What do? Well, somebody might come along and do something really fucking crazy with Superman or Batman. Like, I don't know, instead of trying to make it more of a Marvel movie, they fucking just say, fuck that shit. I'm going to make a live-action Batman the Animated Series. I'm going to make it in the 30s. And I'm also going to make it kind of non-time distinct. So like there's cars that look like they're from our time period, but everyone's still using like, it's this kind of radio, see? And it's completely different and it's artistic.
So you're
and
saying that they don't have to use the MCU formula
Correct.
to make a good movie. And I agree with that, but man, I challenged them to do that.
Dude, you and me
all
both,
been
man.
challenging them to
Dude,
do that.
everyone has, right? Like I don't think it's going to happen because
They need money.
It's too risky.
They just need big money, and that's why
Right.
Marvel's doing so good because Disney can throw the money, and they got their formula down.
Well, Warner
Yeah,
Brothers, let's
Marvel-
not
you
act
said-
like Warner
yeah,
Brothers
hold on.
don't got money.
Yeah. There isn't Marvel anymore. It's Disney. It's
Right.
Disney. Like, I'm sorry, anybody out there, Marvel doesn't exist anymore as it used to when Botter and I were growing up.
Well, no, that sounds like feelings talking.
It's true. It's
Marvel
true.
still exists for me.
Marvel does not exist the way it used to. Disney
Marvel-
has a brand.
The new Marvel is that we got money and we can do this. That's the new Star Wars. That's
Disney
everything
has-
that Disney owns.
Disney
they can
has
throw
money.
money at and make it what it. But
and they make the comics
in
tie
that
into the movies.
Same breath, Disney, please buy DC.
God, no.
No, I'm
God, no.
It's all about the money. I don't think Disney is necessarily changing the message of these. So what? Okay, you're shaking your head. Yes, over
I
there.
guess because
yes, Disney is changing the message.
don't want. I like the competition because it gives me. It gives me.
I do too.
Do you really?
Well, I mean, competition like kind of just innovate. Like gives me the innovation, the ideas. It's
For
like,
sure.
What's separating you guys two? If one company owned all of those IPs, I feel like you would have some layer of similar tone or just a guideline to follow.
Well, then how long would you have to wait for them to make your favorite? Maybe you've got a favorite little offshoot, and it's like, man, I've been waiting
Look,
on.
we're not
DC
going to get a Squirrel Girl movie. I've been waiting for a long time. I've come to peace with it.
I want to go ahead and put a nice bow over this convo because we got. I want to go on music break. We got some voicemails I want to play. Brian, how about you wrap us up? Because you brought up your buddy Matt that you got into. You had said some things that made me reminisce about the episode you were on, where I think your piece of advice at that time was for new readers or anyone interested in getting into this hobby was don't try to take it all on. And it sounds like you're kind of giving your buddy Matt the same advice. is that the general advice that you still have for new readers or people looking into collecting? I mean, is there anything else that you can give them with your plus 4 months experience since you've been last on, you know?
Well, in this long trying time, I think I still stand by it. You got to find something that interests you, you know, and there's plenty of it out there. And now that they're releasing less on Floppies, and
you know, me right in the eyes when he said it.
Hard. I call them hards.
It just means that what they're putting out there, they're putting out the real quality stuff. So if you know, go pick up something that's new and out there, and just if it doesn't catch you, move on to the next one. If it does catch you,
put
keep
something
going,
else
you know?
floppy in your hand. Is what you're saying?
Or take it out. You know, maybe it's been too long.
Hell yeah.
Take one.
Beautiful ending. Beautiful ending words, Brian.
So we just got to move from one floppy to another.
awkward.
See, what about you, man? I want to hear from you real quick before we go on music break. What's your? And I have an idea of what your advice has been because it doesn't seem that it's changed. But for new collectors or folks trying to get into the hobby, what is your go-to advice for them?
Comics are dead.
Damn. Thanks, brother.
No,
Thanks for
That's
that,
wrong.
brother.
How do you want to get into comics? They don't exist.
they're fucking done. They're done.
Reverse psychology.
They're done.
I'm like, what?
They're fucking done. No, I would say. I mean, that's kind of a weird question, right? Like, the deck was loaded with you because you already like comics, right? Same with Andy or Drew. And to be fair, that slipped out. Everybody knows him at Drew. I've known Drew for God knows how many years, since he was like not even old enough to work the night shift at Winn-Dixie.
Sounds dirty.
The idea is that if you're into it, you're going to be into it, especially nowadays, right? So like, because everything is so, we're saturated with media, right? We have Netflix, we have video games, we have, I remember, we came up when video games were like freaking, like just old. Like you don't have like a Spider-Man game like now where like it looks like you're playing a movie, right? So if you are into comic books, God bless you. You're doing the Lord's work. You there's a part of you that's like, what's this? Like, you just, the dust flies off the top of a box.
I'm listening to you, and you've got a great point, but it also just sounds like you're old and in the game, and it ain't worth playing the game.
No, I didn't
more.
say that.
But then you got
I didn't
somebody
say that.
like somebody
Hold on.
I had comic books when I was little that was great, and then getting reintroduced to it was almost like, oh wow, this is something that I always knew was great.
You just proved my point that you were already, the deck was stacked. So you had comic books, right?
Yeah, but I'm still considered a new reader.
Sure.
Because
You've been out of the game for so long.
Yeah. So
now you're back
how
in.
many other 30 to 35-year-olds are out there
There are a
that
lot.
are not reading comic books at all? But it's like, hey, give it a chance, and like, oh wow, you know what? This was cool. This
Honestly,
was always cool.
I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there are a lot of 35-year-old men who are really into comic books now. I think what Botter's saying is that if you had to pitch comic books to somebody, what would I say? I would say depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to somebody who likes action and really isn't into like philosophy, I would give them a Jim Lee comic book of X-Men. Chris Claremont, Jim Lee, X-Men from the 90s. And I'd say, check this shit out, man. Because the art would blow that person away, and the story would be not simple, but enough that they'd be like, I get it. There's like Wolverine cutting up a dude. They're playing tag. Cool. I like this. If it was somebody who is like, for instance, like I don't think it's any shocker or a surprise that this is mainly targeted towards young men industry, simply because of the way some of the individuals are drawn in the fantasy world. But there's stuff out there now where you could be like, well, hold on a second now. There's all kinds of comics. You don't have to stick with superheroes. Mm-hmm. Like you could just say, I brought a bunch now. I was like, has anybody read, do you know who Frank Cho is?
No.
Okay. He does legit comic book art for Cape shit. Like definitely. But he also has like a humor strip that's drawn just as badass as his stuff for Marvel or DC. That like if you want like to laugh, like there's that there. There's the Goon if you want really sort of like washed out, kind of like weird cartoony but incredibly detailed stuff. that toes the line on horror and supernatural. Like, there's all kinds of tastes that you could give to somebody. So I would say, depending on who's talking to me, I could make a pitch. I could sell comics easily. They sell themselves. It's just that nowadays, the big two kind of like have said, like, we define what comics are. If it's got spandex on, that's comics. We're like, you'll come to find out, which you already have. No, I don't think so. I'm reading this fucking book called Descender, which is essentially fucking Pinocchio, but with Blade Runner mixed into it. Like, it's completely not that, and I dig it. So there's a lot of people out there that know who the big two are. I don't think there are as many people who are like you that are like, yeah, that's nice, but I'm willing to dig a little deeper. Those people, I got to crack my knuckles and I can work my magic still. But I think the comics sell themselves.
So it sounds like the challenge is the entry point. Good
Sure.
art is good art. I
Sure.
can show you Dan Moore illustrations, and if you don't like it, you're not appreciative of good art. So
Sure.
I feel like that's a little subjective. I mean, I see where you're going with it.
Butter's like, I mean, he's no Mark Bagley. I mean,
no, but you got to find that entry point.
I don't
for somebody.
think art would be my focal point. I think
how would you do it, Butter?
I think my advice is a little bit of both of yours, where it's I would never sour someone's entry into collecting like big two weekly stuff.
No, and absolutely, I'm not.
It's like I've had my moment in the sun. For me personally, cape superhero stuff right now is just kind of. I'm at a point where I'm noticing like the reiterations or the remixes. What I'm calling. It's like
It's like when you're in high school and you listen to Korn and Limp Bizkit, and you're like, yeah, these guys are my shit. And then like you like real music. There's nothing wrong with what got you there.
Yeah.
It's just that's what got you there.
So for me, it's like go with what you like, but at some point, there's a whole world. Like comic books, to C's point, I think does get lumped up with just superhero stuff. And I mean, I am a prime example of someone who thought the only comic books existed
Me
were
too.
DC and Marvel. Luckily now, I mean, I read a book, a comic book about the origin of Tetris. Blew my fucking mind. I think
Will Eisner, man.
I think eventually you get to a point where you realize a comic book is just the format and the medium. You start respecting it as a medium
Right.
and a format,
Right.
not a certain genre. I think that's what people mix up is comic books are not genre, a superhero genre. It is a format. It is a medium.
It's a way to tell a story.
Yeah,
I think that's fair, and I think that's good if you're trying to talk somebody new into getting to it. You're kind of getting rid of that misconception.
So-
that
And if that doesn't work, you say, fucking here's Spider-Man.
So I think
Shit, put it in your
So
eye.
I think, like, yes, don't go into it trying to be overwhelmed. But to C's point, too, there is 100%, without a doubt in my mind, a comic book out there
for anyone.
For anyone.
Yeah, I could fucking sell that shit, dude.
Exactly. It's like,
Easily.
whether it be capes or not, like, there is a whole world. And I think anyone who discounts comic books as a legitimate art form or medium is just lacking. Like, you're missing out on a whole world and possibility of great stories.
And
for
you know
sure.
what? There's something to be said also for our experience, and I think you're finding that out too. The comic book shop was a place where there was always a dude, Krusty, who could do that. Could be like, well, what do you like? What are your favorite movies?
Man, yeah, I love that.
What do you enjoy doing? Oh
movie
man,
tree.
well I do like fucking Blade Runner. Do you? Huh? Okay. Have you read Descender? No. What's it about? Well, I mean, covers the same sort of shit that Blade Runner does. What is real? Like, how do you define something as alive? Is it alive? I don't know. It's made of fucking tubes and shit.
So it's those comic book connoisseurs that help you find an entry point.
Just guys that have a passion about that kind of art that know how to sell it. So, like, and you might be one of those dudes eventually. Like, you could do it right now. Shit. Like, you could just be like, oh, well, this is why I dig this. Well, you like Star Wars? Well, shit, have you read Saga? Oh, man, maybe you should read it. It's like, why? Are there like R2-D2s in there? No, but it talks about humanity the way Star Wars did. Maybe you'd like it. Like stuff like that. There's a lot of, I think that's something else that maybe we should have talked about was the idea that what we're doing right now is essentially the conversation we all would have if we were in a comic book store right now.
But now, let's think about it from another way, because...
No. We don't think about it your way. This is the Short Box Podcast. No.
You've got a good way. But, you guys are also, trying to put other people on so much. It's like, yeah, this is why it's good. This is why it's great. And, oh, yeah, if you like that, you should like it. But at some point, just get into it and enjoy it with them. Instead of always trying to think that, I gotta figure out what this person would like. And let me tell you about this and that. Like,
let me tell you about
what you guys are missing out right now. That I'm getting is going to get that new comic book that just came out and having a conversation with somebody, having your mind blown.
Oh no,
we finding it out together.
Yeah, no, we have those conversations.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love getting emails from listeners who champion something that I have never heard about. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I will say there are times I've used, maybe unconsciously, this show as a vehicle to get into more things. I give full respect to this show for opening me up to a lot of things. Like, we'll get emails from people that are saying, like, yo, I heard you guys talk about this. Same thing. Like, hey, you should check out this. And I've been exposed to a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I love the champion culture about comic books. But, there are times when it's like, I want to delve in. I read this one comic book.
Do you think we don't read new shit?
All the way in. Well, that was kind of the general idea.
I have a poll. I go into God.
Yeah, no, like Botter and I have gotten into conversations about Immortal Hulk.
Okay.
Are you reading that?
No, I'm not. That's one that he keeps telling me about.
Oh, man, is he ready for it?
I don't know, but look,
maybe I just need to start with regular Hulk.
That's just dark.
I know. Well, we'll have an offline convo about that. But I know I'm ready for a quick little break. But I want to get on music break only because we have a lot of things to talk afterwards. And I've got some voicemails I definitely want to play from our listeners, speaking of which. So let's go on a quick music break. I'll play another fly tune by our guest, Shortbox producer DJ Crumbs. This one is called Her Favorite Style. We'll be right back.
Shit, seriously. That's why I brought
this one here looks amazing.
Yeah, you got the show going, huh? Yeah. Right. That is the book every man.
Yo, wait a minute. You brought How to Draw Marvel Comics the Marvel Way for him?
Yeah.
God damn it. That book that might be a cornerstone in my that book is so fucking good. One of the most important books.
I brought that book because when I was a little kid, I wanted to learn how to draw comics, right? And who better to teach me than the greats, right? Like House of M, fucking the House of Ideas, Marvel, right? So I looked at that book as sort of like religious text, man, like the keys to the kingdom. Like, this is how because, comics in my mind are sometimes in some ways better than movies. Where you could read them and be like, oh, wow.
That chapter 6 cover is great religious metaphor because, it's drawn by the Leonardo da Vinci of comic books.
Well, they both of them scratch each other's backs.
So welcome back, Shortbox. Welcome back, Shortbox Nation. Of course, as you guys can tell, we're back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that track by DJ Crumbs. While we were on break, Cesar was sharing a couple of books that he brought for Brian to check out. C, you want to give a quick rundown of what books you brought to share?
Yeah, sure. I essentially just got a bunch of stuff that I think just plain out just looks fucking cool. Something new, something old.
Hey, Shortbox Nation. Sorry for the interruption. Just a few quick words from our sponsor, and we'll get right back to the show. Yeah, so this is where I pick up my comics.
Excuse me, might I remind you the rules here at No Touch Collectibles? No loitering, no friendship, no touching the merchandise without gloves, and no free bags and boards.
Yeah, man, I know. This shop sucks. I don't even know why I shop here.
Well, we could go to Jacksonville's premier location for comic books, collectibles, toys, and more.
You okay?
At Gotham City Limits, you get 10% off comic books in your pull, 20% off trade paperbacks and hardcovers, 10% off high-end figures and statues, and free bags and boards. It's practically criminal.
And that's why Gotham City Limits is a place of the people.
How many times have you watched the Batman trilogy?
I'm ashamed to say.
Well, I mean, they're not bad.
One time for every time the Joker has taken the city hostage.
Are you done with that?
Yeah, I'm done.
Well, let's just go take our business there.
Gotham City Limit. It's the comic book shop Jax deserves, but not the one.
All right. I get it. It's a great shop. Let's just go.
I brought Skyborn by Frank Cho, Boom Studios. I brought also Liberty Meadows by Frank Cho, who is, in my mind, second only to Bill Watterson as far as humor strips are concerned. And I specifically brought in The Goon and Will Eisner's The Spirit to show that even back in the day, Will Eisner was drawing as good as somebody. Like, you could show somebody Will Eisner's art now, and they would be perplexed to tell you what time period he's from. You know, like, if you just didn't give any kind of context, you're like, look at this drawing. You know, like, they'd be like, that's kind of cartoony. Almost looks like something Frank Cho would draw. But it's from the 40s and 50s. You know, like, he was so good. And I brought some Mobius, also listeners, patrons, Jean-Gérard Mobius, French artist extraordinaire.
And you're also Bernie Wrightson?
Oh, of course, man.
Damn,
My faves. He's my favorite.
This is the ultimate old guy comic pack. Like, this is like, well, I mean, it's all like classics.
It's essentially comics that transcend just, it's everything, you know? I brought The Dark Knight Returns, man. Some capes are there, some science fiction's there, some horror's there, some humor, a little bit of the classics. It's all kind of neat.
Frank Miller, is that the top notch? That's the top notch Batman name, Frank Miller.
It's to some people. People.
Okay. I know
it
nothing
depends.
about DC.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my favorite Batman story was written by Frank Miller, which is that one, The Dark Knight Returns.
Gotcha.
Artistically, my favorite Batman is drawn by Jim Aparo. Jim Aparo draws my favorite Batman, and he's got kind of a classical, his own take on bats that isn't like Neil Adams. Neil Adams is great. I think Jim's is a little more streamlined. Don't tell Neil.
So I had an idea while we were on break after I introduced that weak ass segment. But Brian, are there any books that you would recommend to us or anyone listening to check out?
Yeah.
That's tough because I assume anything good I say, you're going to be like, oh, man, we read that 20 times. But,
literally 20 times.
And I've already said a couple of the ones, but I think Descender was one that I told to you about, and you said that was on your list to watch or to read. God Country, Once and Future. Those are kind of, that's what I've stepped out of my realm with.
God Country an Image title?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
so is Descender, right?
Yep.
Yes.
See, those are some of the books you highly recommend, and they aren't part of the big two.
Right. Yeah, and
weird.
That's a lot of my growth since the last episode, and
it's
as
like,
a comic book reader.
Do you remember that episode of The Simpsons where Lisa had her tooth in a petri dish?
Yeah,
and like every time she kept coming back, like civilization kept advancing. It's like you're taking strides that Botter and I, it took us years to get to. Like yeah, Marvel's the only way. 10 years later. You know what? I like DC too. 10 years later. You know what? Image isn't that bad. 10 years later. I think old Will Eisner books are the only thing worth reading.
Do you know, and this is not this, it'll come off pretentious, but where I'm at right now is creator-owned. Like directly from the creator. So like, especially with like the day and age we live in now, how
Todd McFarlane just got a huge boner.
How accessible it is to, follow a creator on Twitter or sign up for their email newsletter, or things like Patreon or like these different avenues that creators can reach out to their fans. I've started to follow some of my favorite writers and creators on like things like Patreon to see what projects are they working on in their off time, because I know that
might be the best representation of their work because it's completely unfiltered. You know, they're not working for a company. This is direct to consumer. And one that comes to mind is Ed Brubaker has a he's got he works with this website called Panel Syndicate where it's name your price comic books. It's all digital, but it's like, hey, I just teamed up with my buddy here, you know, and it's like, wait, that's fucking Marcos Martin? And it's like, well, duh, of course, like you've got
they
his
know
number.
each other,
yeah,
right?
Of course,
like
right?
it's like, yeah, we had pizza last
exactly.
week.
So it's like, hey,
Sounds like the music industry with like the mixtape game.
yeah, I love it. Yeah. So I've started to really kind of dive into that and like web comics and just like completely off kilter, like
Frank Miller's Sin City comes to mind.
yeah. But yeah, so you're saying your recommendations again were Descender, God Country, and what was that third one?
Once in Future, but then again, that came from y'all.
I was waiting for Butter to be like, no, what was that third one again? House of X, Spider-Man.
Honestly, the biggest one I'm looking forward to, and I just want to show y'all the picture that I keep talking
Yeah, I
about.
saw that.
This is the Donnie Cates and Dylan Burnett creation that's coming, and it's supposed to be an offshoot of God Country. And just the one image that I keep seeing on Twitter, you know, time and time again, I'm hype about it.
That reminds me of Jack Kirby when I see that, Butter. Like the way it's shaded and the way it looks. Could you show that to Butter again?
Yeah,
I've seen that when it came out. Well, you know, Donnie
Just the
Cates.
colors.
Donnie Cates to me,
I like the colors.
someone on Twitter had said, like, yo, Donnie Cates loves writing books about swords. And ever since then, like, I just can't help but notice, like, yeah, this motherfucker loves some swords.
It's true. Swords are chains.
Yeah. Okay.
Penis.
I want to go ahead and shift gears, go into our email and kind of fan appreciation, listener fan mail section. It seems that this week, man, the listeners have been enjoying the voicemail feature. So we got a Google Voice number 904-580-4095. People want to leave voicemails. We'll play it. But we also started a SpeakPipe account. SpeakPipe.com/theshortbox.
What is SpeakPipe?
It's essentially, it's just like a Google Voice. You could just go on SpeakPipe.com/theshortbox, and you can record it from your laptop or computer. So that way, if you don't want to, leave a voicemail, and you want to set up a mic or whatnot. So we actually got a few voicemails to play. I want to play these first two. One is from Corey. Okay, yeah. So this one is from Corey Torgerson, of course.
Of course. Of Corgerson.
Man, I cannot get over y'all's voicemail thing. That is still just great. Anyways, it has taken me like months to catch up on all things Shortbox and even straight chilling. So I'm finally back to call in and answer a few questions. For starters, y'all brought up the angry video game nerd and his knowledge on Godzilla. Not only did I know that guy was still relevant, but I didn't know that he was a huge Godzilla fan. So that's something worth looking into. Seriously, the last time I watched this guy, you could watch his whole catalog in like an afternoon. As far as recent animes that I would recommend, if you're a Ghost in the Shell fan, check out Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045. It's 3D. As far as modern 3D anime go, it looks pretty good, very promising. Someone brought up Gundam The Origin last week, and seriously, like, mega props to whoever did that, because that is a phenomenal manga series. The anime is great, but I would absolutely recommend that you guys, as comic aficionados, check out the manga. The guy who does the manga is the original character design artist from the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and he now does character design, suit design, and the story. So it's kind of just this one guy with his years of experience doing a retelling. The other side is it is not an exact retelling of the original story. He puts more emphasis on the other side, the Zeon side of things, which is, to me, the best way to do a retelling of a modern story, or of an older story. Guys, I just want to say I do really appreciate everything that y'all have been doing. Putting out persistent content has really helped me with a lot of stuff that's been going on in my personal life. Especially being able to call in and talk to C on Hotline Schwing. I keep recommending you to everyone who asks about what podcasts we listen to. Recommended anime. Seriously, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. It came out 20 years ago. Watch it. Watch it. It will always be amazing. I watch it at least once every other year, and it never gets bad. Phenomenal movie. Just looks amazing. It'll look good for the next 40 years at least. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Do you like anime?
I love anime.
Shit, man.
I have a lot of opinions on it. I'm like, all right,
gotta talk,
we
man.
about to talk about this stuff. So he just ended off on Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so amazing. And the thing I remember about that was the animation upgrade over the original Vampire Hunter D.
Sure.
But the original Vampire Hunter D was so great,
Badass too.
It's so amazing. But it's such a horror vibe.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah.
You watch that movie,
Dude.
like you be prepared.
It came out. So I saw Vampire Hunter D and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust when I was in high school, and both of them I watched on a bootleg ass VHS tape that my buddy who was from the Philippines got from somebody in Japan. That's some shit. That's some fucking.
That was the best part of anime is like
Legit.
getting it. Like it wasn't easily attainable
No.
over here. So I would get all the Dragon Ball Z movies, like the 1 through 13,
sure.
the actual movies.
Oh, sure.
But I'd have like bootleg VHS, and it's so
You're talking about characters like Paikuhan, and people are like, "Who the fuck are you talking about?"
Like, oh, you don't know about Janinba?
Yo, he's got some
Man.
badass lips, dude.
Don't get me started. Yo, Corey Torgerson is like our unofficial anime manga correspondent. So anytime that we bring it up during a show, we'll either be like, "Yo, Corey, tell us we're wrong," or "Yo, Corey, chime in," and he'll always do a great
I
job.
love the
just coming on.
horribly dubbed Vampire Hunter D original. To this day, I
love
it.
I'm a sub
I
over
love
dub,
it.
but I think some of those classic
no.
ones, the dub is worth it.
I have a soft spot for it because it's the first thing I exposed to, and I used to just joke around with my friends and be like,
My name is Regensi, Vampire Hunter. Killing men like you is my greatest pleasure. Prepare to die.
So I like Corey bringing up anime because I wanted to say something about he was saying some recommended anime. I've got a recommended anime, Vinland Saga on Amazon Prime, and this is basically like
Vikings, right?
It's Vikings. It's like The Last Kingdom, but in anime form. The story is so well written, and the animation is so perfect. It is so top notch. I think Vinland Saga is probably one of the top best animes to come out, like just past Attack on Titan.
Jesus.
It is really that good, and I wholeheartedly recommend that to anybody who's not necessarily a huge anime fan. Maybe they're not a shonen fan. Maybe they don't want to get into it because of this or that. Vinland Saga is the amazing offshoot comic story of anime.
It's on Prime, you
and
said?
it's on Amazon Prime.
Is that an Amazon Prime original?
I think so.
Damn.
I think so. But it's top notch, and I'm a big anime fan. And the other thing I want to say to Corey is thank you so much for bringing up Gundam, because Gundam I freaking love. I've seen almost every iteration of the animes. All the Universal Century and all the alternate stories as well. And one thing that I wanted to say about Gundam, he was saying, look at the mangas and stuff. If you like Origin, you like the Origin movies, go look at the mangas. One thing I wish so much that Gundam had was like an American comic version. I like mangas and I grew up reading mangas and I have no problem reading them, but the black and white kind of throws me off every now and then. Like I would love to see like a full color, full illustration, like Dan Mora type Gundam comic. That'd be so amazing.
Let me recommend.
Hold on.
This is
I
not-
don't know. Hold on.
Right,
Look, you guys could answer this question better. So Gundam was something that I just wasn't into. Not because I fucking hate Gundam. I love mecha. I love all of that shit. The thing is, it seemed when it came on, I didn't watch enough to catch up to the story. And because I didn't know enough of the story, I couldn't really appreciate it for what it was. So the only thing I could appreciate was how badass the robots looked. The ships, the piloted mecha.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, there's not enough of that in the episode. Sometimes it's just straight like Game of Thronesy. Like they're just like fucking political.
A lot of politics.
Right? So it's like,
And I assume you're talking about Gundam Wing.
sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know Toonami.
Probably that one.
Yeah, that was
And which is fine. I'm cool with it so long as I know what's going on, right? So for somebody like me who doesn't know shit about Gundam, what's a good entry point?
Oh God, that's a tough.
God
That is
damn it.
That's a tough question because the main entry point is the original Mobile Suit Gundam, but the
Okay.
animation is considered so outdated by a lot of people that it's hard to get through those 43 or so episodes.
Brother, I love Robotech. I might be able to hang with it. And Gigantor.
Maybe so. And so, the biggest sell on Gundam over other mech animes is the fact that Gundams were used as a piloted system. It's almost like a war. It's war equipment,
Yeah.
It's kind of like Top Gun,
Robotech.
and Yeah, so I watched Robotech and I watched the Pat Labors and some of those, and I'm super robot fighting isn't necessarily my genre, but I love Gundam, and I think it's because of the politics. I think it's because of the war dramas that go along with it, and then also the creator Tamino, he loves to kill your favorite fucking characters, man.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to me.
Well, first of all,
I can see why you and Butter are friends.
Mobile Suit Gundam is by far my favorite. The manga that Corey went ahead and brought up, I've got like the first 4 volumes. I can't recommend them enough. And it's
those look
funny,
clean, dude.
and it's great that he brought them up because in the bonus episode we had of Malcolm that came out this week, there was a lot of Gundam talk, and Malcolm's Gundam knowledge and appreciation is definitely like. I think you would definitely vibe with it. The 2 that I'll recommend before I play this next voicemail is MS-18.
Yep.
Which is more like guerrilla kind of warfare. Like it's very like dirty.
It's
like
the 08th MS
Thank
team.
you, 08th MS
Yeah,
team.
and it's a small like 13 episode story that
super
is
digestible.
an offshoot of the main mobile.
Not so much as I mean, there's no way there isn't about politics, but it's like I like that guerrilla warfare, just kind of dirty, like.
Yeah.
All of these characters.
That one's known for
in the trenches.
really bringing it to reality and making it feel like it is.
And then the other one I'll recommend, only because it's the last one I watched, is Gundam. Is it Thunderbolt?
Thunderbolt.
Which, I mean, it's just like a two-part
it's
movie.
easily digestible. And
I love the jazz. I love the jazz
the jazz
influence. Love the jazz influence. The soundtrack.
The animation
is great.
The colors.
And it's only 2 movies, so it's like here's a story. You don't got to watch 40 episodes of us, political.
How many episodes are there of Gundam? Like, is it? It's not like One Piece bad, is it?
Well,
No, I mean there's
overall,
like a shit ton of fucking series.
So I think I can break Gundam down pretty easily here and then allow us to move on to the next thing.
Take your time.
But Gundam breaks down into the main Universal Century timeline, which is your Mobile Suit Gundam, and then you have your 08th MS team and your Stardust, and then Gundam Victory and Gundam Double Z, and then Gundam Zeta. So all of that stuff is the main Universal Century timeline, and even though you have different characters in all of them, it's kind of like year 99 to year 600, this is what happened. And then you have your alternate timelines, which is your Gundam Wing, which is your Iron-Blooded Orphans, Gundam Age, and things like that. And it's a self-contained story using all of the tropes of a normal Gundam show, but within a self-contained 25 to 50 episodes. Gundam Seed is something that, was played in North America a lot. So a lot of people may know about that, but it's an offshoot of the Universal Century Gundam. So that's how it's separated. And if anybody wants any suggestions on where to jump in,
what's the OG?
I've got great suggestions. The OG is Mobile Suit Gundam. With
is that
Amuro versus Char.
Is that anywhere?
I love Char.
Is that?
There's I think for Mobile Suit Gundam they came out with like an OVA, original video animation.
Oh, I know what OVAs are, sir. Come on.
So that's like 3 movie versions.
On like the episode.
The 3 movie versions,
yeah.
the OVA. I heard that they're decent. I haven't watched them, but
Look,
that's because
I watch Gotcha Man on Saturdays.
So I mean, I guess with
G-Force Attack, Battle for the Planets. No.
No.
Oh shit, we're gonna have to talk offline.
You said Gotcha Man, and I think you're talking about, come on, man, from like a football Sunday. Gotcha, man.
Wait. So I guess to this point, I don't really know where Gundam is available like that, unless it's on Crunchyroll or something.
Hulu has a lot of Gundam. Amazon Prime has a lot of Gundam. Netflix
Okay.
actually got
So it's
Gundam
everywhere.
Iron-Blooded Orphans. And so Iron-Blooded Orphans is something that I will throw out there. It's a newer one. It's a newer iteration. It's an alternate universe. It's self-contained. If you like mechs and you like Mafia, Iron-Blooded Orphans is for you. It's so good. And the fact that they brought it to Netflix, I've always
Did they get like Robert De Niro to do one of the voices?
maybe.
Of
you
the
imagine?
robot. Of
like
the
he's
robot.
like, he's like, I am a robot. Now you insulted him. You insulted him now. Hold on a second. Hold on. I am the robot.
It's so good, man. It's so I'm happy that more Gundam is coming to North America because it's huge in Japan. In Japan, Gundam is their Star Wars. And I don't say that lightly. Like in Japan, Gundam is their Star Wars. Like that is what introduced them into kind of space wars, and they have the concept of new types and new type energy, which is kind of like when you're in the heat of the battlefield, like you can connect with your enemy like through your mind because you're both on the same level, and it really is the same thing as the Force within the Star Wars world of American popular culture.
Sure.
So
real quick. Don't be surprised if Corey sends you a friend request, because after he listened to the episode of Malcolm, he was like, Yeah, I just sent Malcolm a friend request because his Gundam knowledge is fucking good. So, the short box is connecting fans
short
and
boxers,
friends.
if you are, I'm sorry that this went on a long time. Fuck
Ask
you.
me back for the anime episode.
I was going to all right, yeah.
Y'all like those don't exist.
Look at him like muscling his way in.
Yeah,
Man. It happens on all the guests. I want to move on to this next voice. Corey, thank you so much for that voicemail. I'm going to save emails. So Luna and Corey again. I'll read those next week when we got the full crew. I'm just going to do voicemails this episode. The next voicemail I got is from Isaac Fox, who is a comic creator. Based out of here in Jacksonville. He left a voicemail promoting issue 4 of his original series called Cremesi.
Space Western, right?
Yeah, manga space Western. I remember having him on.
I'm interested.
When
good shit,
he had the Kickstarter for the first issue, so it's cool to see that he's up to issue 4 and he's still rocking and rolling.
Support your local artist.
Yes, so we're going to play this voicemail by Isaac Fox.
Hey Shortbox, this is Isaac Fox, writer and creator of Jacksonville's own space western manga-inspired comic, Cremesi. We've got a Kickstarter coming up for our 4th entry in the series, featuring the first ever official cover by Art Germ crew member Eric Chen. We've also got covers by professional artists Jason Hare and Anna Zhao, including a couple of naughty options for you more cultured anime and manga fans out there. If you were like me back in the 90s and you spent all day at school dreaming about getting home to Toonami, this is a book you're not going to want to miss. Show us some local love June 11th on Kickstarter and check out all the Cremesi goodies you can get. Thanks for supporting your local artists. Stay geeky.
No!
Yes! No! Real quick.
Stop. Isaac, hold on. Isaac, my
I didn't even
man.
pay him to say
Isaac, my man, you got to stop. Okay, don't ever say stay
keep it
geeky.
geeky, baby.
Stop. Oh my God, please. Potter's head is big enough. No, he's giggling so much right now.
I swear to God. So I screened all these voicemails prior to hitting play. When I heard that
I could
one,
see your dick, sir.
and I was like, did he just say keep it geeky? I said, oh,
no.
I wish Ed was here because I'm going to definitely remind you motherfuckers.
I'm about to boycott Keep It Geeky.
Look, for Brian's sake, there was a short 1-episode run.
You did it twice.
Two episode run where I tried to sign out the show. I was like, I need to sign out the show in a way.
He wanted a zinger, like some sort of cool catchphrase at the end, and he was like, "Hey, all right, guys. Well, Normally, Potter is so good at closing out the show. He's like, "Hey, buddy, thanks for listening. Always remember that blah 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 blah. Hey, we love you guys. Blah blah blah." And then he ends it. He decides to say all of those things, sticks the landing, then decides keep it geeky. It was awkward as fuck, and then before any of us could be like, what just happened? He goes, stop. Show's done.
Great,
Show's
guys.
done.
Yeah, next
I got
Sunday.
the last word in.
They just dragged my ass to the point where I was like, well, I'm never saying keep it geeky. And every now and then they'll be like, yeah, right, Potter? Yeah, they keep it geeky, right, Potter? So it's great that Isaac Fox signed it out.
Did you scratch it off of all of your
I just don't even say those 2 words.
Brian, I want to drink bleach right now. It's fucking horrible.
All right. Thank you, Isaac Fox.
No, thank you, Isaac Fox. I will support your art, but I will not support your Keep It Geeky.
Y'all got to help me out. I want to read whatever Isaac Fox has out there. It sounds awesome.
It's on Kickstarter.
How does somebody like me who's not in the world that y'all are in
you're setting us up. Okay. Kickstarter.com. Cremisi. CREMISI.
Yeah.
I should probably double check
Can you put the link in the comments or something like that? Is that how
I will personally send you the link. I'm sure it's CREMISI. Or just search Isaac Fox on Kickstarter. It'll come up. He's got up to issue 4. This is the Kickstarter for issue 4.
Yeah, I saw some of that artwork,
the trade's coming out.
No, they're really if you can get the physical copies, do that. I just supported this morning. I went and got the first 4 issues in digital form because I supported the first issue. I've got that and a bunch of goodies. So supported mine.
Also, kudos to him saying goodies, because whenever anybody says we got some goodies for you, for some reason that word is like, well, I can't pass up goodies. Shit.
The milkshake is bringing you to the yard,
man.
here.
It's like, dude, somebody could be like, all right, now and I've got a bunch of stuff and some goodies. And I'm like, fuck, I like goodies.
I spelled it right. CREMISI. Yeah. It's on Comixology, too. You can get the first couple issues on the thing on Comixology. So.
Honestly, I want to support local more than anything. And then the fact that he's like, if you like this and you'll like this. He
sold it. Tsunami. I mean, that's an instant win. I got one more voicemail. This last voicemail is in response to the recent announcement that DC Comics' long-standing relationship with Diamond Comics distributors has come to a close. That announcement came out earlier this week. For those of you unfamiliar, Diamond Comic Distributors is a comic distributor serving retailers in North America and worldwide. There's an argument to be made, an easy one at that, in my opinion, that they are a monopoly when it comes to comic book distribution here in the U.S. They service everyone from the big two to Image, Boom, IDW. I mean, the list goes on. The recent news of DC leaving Diamond has been a hot topic among comic book fans and comic shops all week. I mean, I went to the shop this week, and Ben was talking to someone about it. I'm sure that convo is going on all over the comic shops across the country. It was too important not to at least touch on, so I decided to call in the big guns for this. You know, someone a little more eloquent that could really speak to it a little better. So I asked Ben Kingsbury of Gotham City Limit, who seems, you know, who is also sponsoring this episode, to comment on the news and what it means from a shop owner perspective. So here's Ben now.
Hey, Short Box listeners, Ben Kingsbury from Gotham City Limit here. First, let me say what an honor it is to even be a small part of the Short Box podcast family. As most of you know, we're now a proud sponsor of what we believe is the best podcast in the country about the comic book culture. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, most businesses have been affected, and the comic book pop culture business has been no exception. So the guys and gals at the Short Box asked me to share a few of my thoughts on, as an owner, on what's shaking in our industry. So if you've ever met me, one, you know, I love to talk. Two, you know, I'm an annoyingly optimistic guy. So let's start there. Positives. If you aren't aware, for the last 20 years or so, only one distribution company has basically existed in the direct market comic book world, Diamond Distribution. And like every monopoly, without competition, we the consumers suffer. Now, I've been in the business for 3 years, but I have received shipments from Diamond a minimum of 4 times a month, which would add up to roughly over 130 shipments total. And remember, we pay COD for our comics. And Diamond Distribution has never once sent me everything I paid for. Not once. Just this week, they sent me a box of comics that appeared as if they stuck a forklift through the side of it. Instead of fixing the issues they destroyed, they just decided to ship them out to me anyways and fix the problem later. So the news that DC, really AT&T pulling the strings, terminated a relationship with Diamond initially came across as positive. From what I've heard, both companies DC is now using for distribution, Lunar, which is a sister company of DCBS, and UCS, which is a sister company of Midtown Comics, are doing a better job already than Diamond ever did. I'll be honest, though, like most things in life, you need to be careful what you wish for. And I'll tell you, my honest first reaction is I was upset by having to buy my comics wholesale from direct competition. But after a day or two of reflection, I realized that most of my complaints were really just sour grapes. Business models always change, and if you want to continue to survive in life, you always need to adapt. After all, if you're ripe, you're rotten. And DC Comics has never been better, especially with the sequel to Metal, Death Metal, about to hit shop this week. So, honestly, I'm excited for the future and to see where the comic book pop culture genre heads, and I can promise Gotham City Limit will be adapting and growing however we need to. Comics are a generational American hobby, and my goal is to keep that tradition going. Cheers, Short Box listeners. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yo, I fucking love Ben.
Dude,
Yo,
that was so
Ben
good.
Dude, this dude was like crazy. Like I imagine him like on a boat in the middle of the world, like freaking transmitting from like, yo, this is a forbidden signal they don't want you to listen to. And by they, I mean the powers that be. Listen up, folks, and everybody kick up to the Pork Chop
Every
Express.
comic book reader's just raising their Duncate's sword in the air, just like, I follow you, Ben.
Kirby crackles at the end of it.
So the plan is going forward when we have to break or comment on like comic book news like that to start incorporating Ben, because I mean his perspective as a shop owner.
Yeah, and he sounds like fucking Kurt Russell from Big Trouble in Little China, man. Like that he was like, let me tell you something. When life fucking sucks you in the wrong way, you look at her in the eye and you say, anytime you want, sweetheart.
It's just cool listening to him. It's like, man, he's the authority. Like, you know, I'm sponging up everything he's saying, and I have no reason to not believe anything.
And I like the honesty where he's like, yeah, I was really pissed at the news.
Well, it's coming from a dude who's not trying to be negative. That's why it makes sense, right? Like he off the bat said, I was like, look, I'm a positive guy. I'm optimistic. but this is some shit going
Let me tell you why
down.
this sucks.
Right.
But I mean, he did backtrack. Like, well, I mean, my original anger was kind of misplaced, but I do like the end. I felt like it was an appropriate ending too, considering our whole conversation has been about like comic books and the generational like just kind of carryover. And I'm not saying that you're of a prior generation. It's just his comments about it being such an American a pastime. I think sometimes I tend to forget that.
Well, there's he
that
said a
resonates
tradition.
with me.
There's a
Tradition. Thank
tradition
you.
for sure.
That definitely resonates with me as a new reader. And then also another thing that he said resonates with me is, you got to adapt. Like, it's not going to be the same thing it's always been. And hell, with everything going on, like that's everything going on in the world right now, that's like what's being thrown in our face. Just because it's been this way for 30, 40 years doesn't mean it has to continue to be that way.
Right.
So, it's good to hear that Ben is going to roll with the punches, and whatever the industry throws at him, he's going to find a way to get a good product out there to the people who like it.
I will go ahead and shamelessly plug that.
Dude, hold on.
Okay.
Before you shamelessly plug, allow me to shamelessly plug. He said, you know how we always go, Jacksonville's #1 pop culture podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, he goes, in the country.
I didn't even think about it like that.
I didn't either.
In the entire God country.
I try to stay humble, where I can.
One, bullshit. Two, dude, he broke my brain just now. He broke my brain. Like, why aren't we being like, America's #1 pop culture?
From now on.
Dude, you better fucking believe that shit.
It's just because my love of Jax is so deep rooted. Sometimes I forget that there's a whole country out there.
We gotta. That needs love.
Rest of the country's like, you guys.
Yeah, you guys are all right.
No, the rest of the country's thirsty, bro, and they want this shit.
They know the Long Box podcast. Man, those guys.
Nah, we're trying to go for the lower competition. Get rid of the mid-bucks first.
I want to be a big fish
mid-bucks.
in a small-ass pond. That's a dream.
That's what you are here in Jackson.
But my shameless plug was that for more information about how the comic book kind of market and distribution system has been impacted due to COVID. I would highly suggest listening to our episode 283 Shop Talk for more information on how things kind of happen, because we recorded an episode when the news of like Diamond shutting down due to the pandemic, and then we had talked about like the early rumblings of like DC maybe looking into a different distributor. So it's really cool to see it kind of come full circle and it progress, because as a comic book collector, I will say these, and not to sound dramatic, but it is.
Yo, he's dramatic.
That was good. But it for as long, and it kind of goes back to the theme of this episode, for as long as myself and C has been collecting comics, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard the bitching of Diamond from comic shop, various comic shop owners.
God.
So it is a little unprecedented to see this shift where it's like, wait a minute, Diamond isn't the only like player in this game. Wow.
Like, it's like you think like
there's options.
I feel like Daredevil went up to Diamond and fucking broke his legs. Like he was the kingpin. Like he's just like, you're not gonna take over.
It's definitely, in crisis comes opportunity thing. Like, where can this be taken? Where else does this go? Yeah, let's knock Diamond off the top notch. But like,
I will say, what else comes of
this?
A fan of collecting and going into comic shops, I'm paying attention extra hard to
it's going to change.
Side.
Everything's going to change. Dude, the spinner rack in Safeway up north in Maryland, like it's basically the same thing as Winn-Dixie, right? It's this little grocery store. But that's where I got my comics. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't go to a comic book store. And for the longest time, it's where America got their comics too, was like spinner racks in a, food and drug store, basically.
Small kiosk.
Right, something like that. And then comic book shops started popping up, and that changed the nature of the business as well. Little boutique shops that specialize in selling these interesting little magazines that had different weird tales in them, right?
The comic book shops are almost a reflection of the culture, right?
Sure.
Whereas, your little spinners and the kiosks or whatever is just, an extension of that. It's like, Walmart's going to sell it because it's making money,
Right.
But if you want to know what the culture's like, what people are talking about amongst that circle,
Sure.
you go to your local comic book shop.
Right, absolutely. Yep.
So I'll go ahead and thank our
Butter's like, yeah, shut the fuck up. Hey, thanks, everybody.
I'm like, it's 6:30. I'm trying to get this pizza before they close down. But I want to go and thank Corey Torgerson, Isaac Fox, and, of course, Ben for submitting voicemails. Like I said, we'll read the additional emails I've got next week when we got the full crew. But for anyone listening that wants to go ahead and contribute their voice, champion something, send a question, a comment, whatever it may be, you can do so by either sending an email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com, or you can leave a short voicemail on our Google Voice number, 904-580-4095.
One more time.
904-580-4095, or leave a voicemail on our SpeakPipe account, speakpipe.com/theshortbox. With that being said, we are getting to our closing time, so that means we are at our champion season. Champion season, for those of you tuning in, is our last segment of the show. It is our opportunity to go around the table, and each one of us gets a chance to highlight a few things within pop culture that has really resonated with us this week. It could be a comic book, a movie, a TV series, etc., whatever it may be that we feel, hey, this is super dope. More people should be checking it out. Brian, you are a guest, so you get the honors of telling us, what do you want to champion first?
Okay, so once again, I'm probably not really prepared for the championship series. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, that's the thing. So I told you I had just finished reading the Batman Ninja Turtles crossover.
You fit right in, buddy.
And
you're fucking nailing it, dude. He's nailing it, dude.
He's going to look around the room. Arizona,
I love lamp.
Tray.
I love lamp.
David Sunflower Seeds.
See, are you just saying things around the room and saying that shit's your champion? I love lamp.
You're like, Potter's mom and dad.
Potter,
yeah,
Stanley, pictures, shirt, tape deck.
Brian, what do you want to champion? I'm sorry.
So I don't really, I like the Batman TMNT crossover, and I'm looking at the TMNT Power Rangers crossover next. But one thing that I'm like super hype about is The Last Ronin, which is a Ninja Turtles comic.
It's basically the Dark Knight Returns, but for turtles.
Yeah, and I guess the original creator is now able to do a story that he's kind of tossed around on the side for a long time.
Which one? Laird or Eastman? Because there's two guys.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Whoever's writing The Last Ronin.
Okay.
From what I understand, this is something that he's kind of tossed around for a long time, and now it's something he's actually able to do, and it's kind of like a futuristic outlook on like maybe a dystopian Ninja Turtles world, and the cover just shows it's all red and black, and it has like this Ronin samurai looking guy who has all four of the Ninja Turtles weapons on him.
It's funny you mentioned that. So like the history behind Turtles, right?
Sounds dope.
That originally they all had the same color bandana.
For sure,
red,
yeah.
Right?
Right.
And it's all in black and white. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's coming together somehow into this, and
he's had all the weapons too. He's got a bow staff.
Yeah.
A katana, nunchucks, and the sai.
That's hype.
So like you don't know who the fuck he is.
Right.
Yeah, it looks good, and it is from both of them, Kevin Eastman and Peter.
Oh, so it's the original. Yeah, both the creators.
There you go.
IDW puts out solid stuff, man.
Wow, you're old as fuck.
Ow. First of all.
Yo, you fucking old.
That's my champion.
All right.
Dynamite Studios and Boom is all I read.
I think I was telling C earlier when we had both heard kind of like
I read Valiant from the 90s.
Hey,
Nangus robot fight.
C, what do you want to champion?
So, quick, short, I'm going to champion a book called Season of the Witch, How the Occult Saved Rock and Roll. And it's such a fast read. It's very good if you are into music, and not just rock and roll, because they talk about hip hop, and they also mention like old school, like what people maybe more or less aren't familiar with, like Robert Johnson and the blues, and jazz, along with rock and roll in its traditional sense of the word, like Little Richard and Chuck Berry. It's really good, and it talks about how people's cultures and religions and beliefs and spirituality help influence music and where it is right now. And it breaks down a lot of stuff that I didn't know. Essentially, on some of my favorite albums, like lyrically, what they were really saying and what they were talking about, and fucking how nerdy these dudes were about fucking magic. I myself I dabble right hand path and chaotic a little for those of my fucking magicians out there. Big ups. It's one of the funnest books I've ever read, because you just like, oh shit, like Like you were like, did you ever wonder why fucking Bugs Bunny is why he is a rabbit and why he's a trickster? Like it's all a part of the psychology of America and how, Africans and Native Americans both share a trickster god mentality where a rabbit is considered to be something that is wise and wily and always joking. And
you just sold me.
Yeah, dude.
You just sold me.
And they talk about Anansi, the storyteller. They talk about Papa Legba, who eventually got demonized and lumped in with Satan, where like when you were a blues player, you made a deal at the crossroads. Peter Bebergal is the name of the author, if anybody's interested.
Does this have anything to do with the Nicolas Cage Season of the Witch?
No.
Okay.
No. This is it's basically a little short book on, hey, some of your favorite artists were fucking magicians. Enjoy. Like it's cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, nerd. Okay.
Keep it geeky.
Shut up.
All right. My first champion is Rami season 2. I championed season 1 when it came out, but I gotta edit that last spike. That was good.
Sorry.
No, that was good.
Did I clip? Did I really clip?
Maybe just a little bit. In my ears. Normalize that. Rami season 2, a Hulu original. It follows Rami Hassan. He's a first-generation Egyptian.
Yo, I wanted to watch that.
It's good. He's a first-generation Egyptian American who is on a spiritual journey in his politically divided New Jersey neighborhood. Season 2 aired a couple weeks ago. It's about 10 episodes, which I think season 1 was 10 episodes.
You don't say. Jersey's politically divided, huh?
And this season features Mahershala Ali.
Oh, yeah.
Joining the cast in a recurring role.
That guy's so good.
He is fantastic.
Everything he does.
And I think
gold.
Yeah, it is. And I think he definitely is at home in this role because he is, I think, I want to say a practicing Muslim. So with the show dealing with a lot of what it's like being a first generation American Muslim and then some of those hurdles, he fits right in. And he steals the show a lot of times. I mean, it's Mahir
it's
Ashala,
him. Yeah.
But I highly recommend it. I know for me, not only is it entertaining, but with my background, a lot of the topics and things they hit is just relatable and it's fresh to see that representation.
Damn.
So I recommend it to anyone.
Sold.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
This is second season already?
Mm-hmm.
How many episodes in the first season?
I want to say 10. They were both like 10.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, if you like Atlanta, then this is like Atlanta for American Muslims, so they just deal with a bunch of things that I'm like, holy shit, they are speaking. I've said a few times, like, holy shit, they're speaking my life. Holy shit, that is my mom. They are dedicating an episode on. So it's good stuff. My second champion, man, which has taken up all my damn time, Zelda Breath of the Wild.
You dumbass.
For the Nintendo Switch.
I knew it.
Oh my god, it's so good. Yo,
I'm just running aimlessly on
it's
mountains.
only a matter of time, damn it.
Yo, first of all, the amount of time that passes, and you're like, all I've been doing is running from one mountain to the other. I can't wait to get a fucking horse. Jesus Christ, I'm tired of running.
Are you cooking shit?
Boy, I am a fucking chef. You were talking to a world premiere. Boy, I made some peppered steak the other day. Oof. Heals 4 hearts.
4 hearts plus like 2 yellow hearts.
Oh man,
I have to go.
Look, it is.
I have to go now.
And it's funny that you brought up like the Zelda game. You're like, yo, Nintendo isn't a Nintendo until Zelda comes out. I will go ahead and admit the only Zelda games I've ever played were the ones for like Game Boy Advance, and I think it was the one for SP. It was like Link to the Past or something.
If it's Game Boy Advance, that'd be
Four Swords.
Four Swords. Seasons.
No, 4 Swords, but yeah, you're right. There was Age of Seasons. I played 4 Swords, but barely. Zelda, to me, in all honesty, it's just, I never got into it. It was always kind of boring.
You never played the right Zelda game.
You're right. I haven't. I never played the N64.
You literally played the ones that nobody gave a shit about.
Yeah, exactly. So I missed out on like Ocarina of Time and Mask of Majora. This to me was like, okay, let me finally get into the hype. We just got to switch.
God, this show should be called Swords. Everything is about swords now.
Short box of swords.
But right? Breath of the Wild, it came out in 2017, but I remember the hype then. The coolest part about this game to me, aside from like the great graphics, the different inventory shit you can do, the weapons, is the storyline. Is that it's set in the series end of the timeline. It's 100 years into the future, and Link wakes up. Like, it's like, yo, damn, look, they just pulled out one of these stories in a Zelda game?
Well, okay, first off, timeline. Like, the best part about the Zelda games are that they're kind of fluid. like
they're definitely non-linear.
Yeah, they're more.
But they've
about,
done a
like,
lot of work in recent years to try to connect them all.
They're thematically connected, right? Like the themes are there.
Look, I'm just going by what the description said.
Yo, shut up! You don't know about Zelda.
I'm reading the back of the game right now. Wondrous environment.
But I mean, the premise is essentially Link wakes up from a 100-year slumber. Calamity Ganon, he's got to defeat him before he destroys
I love
Hyrule.
fucking Ganon so much,
Dude, he is
Calamity Ganon sounds
love
insane. Calamity anything. Calamity Brian. Yo, y'all don't want to mess with him.
Okay, I think Brian's got a little too big for his britches.
Calamity Brian. You don't want to mess. Well, I've heard of Calamity Brian. Got it. But yo, look, Zelda Breath of the Wild. That is my second champion. It is a great introduction, like a reason to get into the Switch like that. So those are my champions. Brian, this has been a great conversation, a great episode. It's been a good follow-up, man.
And thank you guys so much. I appreciate being here.
It's
I
good,
really do.
man.
Yeah. Do you have any shout-outs, any things you want, any closing remarks
He's
you
like,
want to
sweet
say?
God, no, I don't.
I've got to go piss. Yeah, now you guys want to go ahead and wrap up this show. Nah, Brian, go to
My shout out is to my phone. I was able to pull up a meme that says I have to take a huge piss, and I
Brian,
show it to them, and they're like,
shout out to toilets,
time to wrap it
bro.
up.
Tell me more about the moral obligations that comic books have had.
So the philosophy.
Yeah, let's talk about swords.
But I mean, do you have any closing remarks?
No, well,
He's like,
yes, I guess. Thank you again for having me on. Closing remarks is, I love the medium of comic books, so thank you for having me on to talk about that. But I love just culture. I love everything about it, So if there's ever another opportunity for me to come on, I'll come on again because I really like talking to you guys as friends. I like talking to you on the podcast and all of that. And then, I will give a shout out to Ben Kingsbury at Gotham City Limit, because
Kingsbury.
He's actually helped me stay into this hobby and, just him talking with me and introducing me to new titles, like that means a lot to me. So that's a good shout out.
Word. Good one. See, what about you? Closing remarks, shout outs?
Honestly, man, this was really good. I was a little hesitant and kind of interested in how this was going to go because I'm like, man, I don't think I never talked to Brian like this, about this stuff. But I was pleasantly surprised, man. Of course, I know him outside the show. He's a charming guy, and I'm very happy that both of us, and including Ben, can just be like a walking Wikipedia of like old guy shit to point him in the right direction as far as where he wants to go. And now that he's gone, I'll say this. I will reiterate this.
Back talks us like
no. No, I was going to say that he kept saying like, "Hey, I'm a Padawan learner," and I was like, "Look, dude, as far as I'm concerned, we're both equals. The only difference because in this, like I said, in this crazy adventure that he's on, he is governing where his ship goes as far as what he likes, what he's into, how he spends his time. Fuck what I have to say. I'm just here as a Wikipedia guy. Like if he wants to know, like, hey, I like this artist. Is there more out there like this? I could say there's like 5 dudes that are like this that you would probably really like, and you only benefit from it. So I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, aside from this being...
Shoot, he's coming back. Oh, yeah. This guy's
Brian
fucking
sucks,
doesn't know shit, man.
Yo, Marvel lover. Marvel lover. No, like I said, I felt that first episode, there was something special about having just a new collector and reader on and getting to hear that perspective because it just resonated. I was like, yo, this is real similar to my kind of journey, and I was assuming like there was a lot of elements of yours, and,
for
and
sure.
even like watching Drew, like, damn, yeah, I remember that. Oh, you got to watch out for this.
Yep.
So I thought it would be fun to have him on for a follow up. And get his perspective on how he's grown as a collector. And it sounds like you said, man, he's on the right track because he's following what he likes. And that's the most important part.
Absolutely.
The minute that becomes a chore or a job, like...
There's going to be a million guys in a shop that could probably be...
sure.
Which is also part of the experience, right? Is like the dude that's like, well, I don't know why you're reading that. You should be reading this.
Yeah. So, Shortbox Nation, that is the end of our show. Thank you guys for hanging out. Woo! and sharing your most valuable commodity with us, especially in this episode, your time. Thank you for sharing that. It is appreciated. If you feel inclined to directly support the creation of more episodes and help us keep the lights on here at Shortbox Studios, consider becoming a Shortbox patron. We'll reward you with bonus episodes and interviews, commercial-free episodes, as well as exclusive merch and gifts in exchange for just a couple of your dollars.
Dude, not just like some pretty high-end, nice-ass gifts. I don't know. Like the last thing the last thing that came out was fucking amazing.
The last time I did an audit, I was like, I should raise the prices. But check out what we have to offer for your contributions on our membership site, patreon.com/theshortbox. Become a patron now to be a part of our next live event. It's taking place at the end of the month.
Fucking money.
You won't want to miss it. I'll reiterate what C said nicely.
About money and fucking giving it to us?
As far as next week's episode, we do got something special lined up for you guys. Consider it a gift from us here at the Shortbox. Stay tuned. I know you'll enjoy it. The crew will be back the following week.
What kind of gift?
You'll see. You'll see.
Come on. Let's do the taste. Come on.
You're going to ruin the surprise. But the crew, so Ashley and Ed.
Potter got mad at me just now.
We'll be back the following week. After that, we'll be talking about an upcoming online comic convention called Comic Conline. Stay tuned for all of these Shortbox goodies. For all of that being said, listeners, stay safe, stay healthy, take care of each other, and come back next week for more good times. In the meantime, continue to make mine and yours Shortbox. Stay funky.
Do it!
Yes!
Yo, what happened to peace? Peace.